Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on this Thursday, the 3rd day of December, 2015. I'm your host, Alex Jones. We have the founder of the Weather Channel joining us to discuss the global government carbon tax situation being pushed in Paris, France. John Coleman will be joining us. Joe Biggs will be joining us from the road with our crew, detailing the American Caliphate. And I got to talk to a state police counterterrorism person with Homeland Security last night about my reporters going out to one of these Islamic centers out in the middle of nowhere with barbed wire fences around it and just talking to the folks at the front guard shack. And we've got footage of all of that coming up as well. Now, that said, as soon as I heard about the tragic events in San Bernardino that started right as the show was basically ending yesterday, right as all of this was going on, I heard it was a husband and wife shooter, and then it was some type of Christmas party. And then as soon as we heard that it was Arabic surnames and that the wife had just been back from Saudi Arabia, had been brought over here from Saudi Arabia, we said, clearly, this looks like a terror attack. The media has been desperately trying to spin this and say that this is not a terror attack. And they also, right up front, and Paul Watson's written articles about this for Infowars.com, tried to blame the libertarians or the right wing for what reportedly Saeed Farouk and his wife did. And I was talking a few days ago about political correctness where people won't even report crimes that are being committed by any, quote, protected group, black, Arabic, female, you name it. The left will not do it. Of course, they died in a big shootout with the police. We have some of that footage we can roll in the background with some of the audio as I speak here. But Neighborhood and Neighbor didn't report San Bernardino shooter over fears of being called racist. Political correctness stopped woman from alerting authorities over suspicious activity. So, yeah, let's go ahead and roll this audio. So they end up running off
there they go.
to Saudi Arabia, coming back.
They're after that guy. They're after that guy.
A few months later, and killing.
Gunshots.
What is it, 13 or 14 people now? The numbers have been changing and wounding a whole bunch of others. So this isn't the San Bernardino, Californian version of Paris because they're just not going to say it's that. Just like Major Hassan, in contact with al-Qaeda for 2 years on record, congressional hearings, attacks and kills, 14 people again, and it's not called Islamic terror. And neither were the attacks on the Marine Corps, Army, Navy recruiting centers. None of these attacks are. In fact, ladies and gentlemen, I guess you can say that Syria, well, Obama won't say Syria and the radical jihadists that are there are radical Islamicists. He won't even say al-Qaeda or ISIS or al-Nusra is Islamic. In fact, they come out and said they're not Islamic. And they've also, I guess, said that 2 + 2 = 5, and you can keep your doctor and you didn't build your business, and they're not coming after your guns either. So we have this wall. We have this wall of garbage taking place, and then dovetailing the big Donald Trump interview that is in over 1,600 newspapers in the U.S. You go to Google News, type in Alex Jones, Donald Trump, you get 1,600 plus stories in one category, then there's 2 other ones of several hundred. It's over 2,000 stories when I checked a few hours ago. CNN, ABC News, all of it demonizing Donald Trump for coming on. He knew that would happen. And then they just misrepresent what I've said, what I do. They go, Jones believes Trump went on a show where the host believes Obama sent a tornado to Oklahoma. When I told a caller I didn't think it was weather weapons. See, this is how they misrepresent. This is how they deceive. Ladies and gentlemen, here we are on this Thursday, already the 3rd day of December, 2015. I'm your host, Alex Jones. We have the founder of the Weather Channel, who's been an outspoken critic of anthropogenic man-made global warming, joining us. He, of course, has been proven correct with that. They admit it's not global warming now or global freezing. It's global climate change, period. You've got to pay the UN, the IMF, the World Bank, Al Gore, Prince Charles, and others, George Soros, Ted Turner, Bill Clinton. You've got to pay Barack Obama. He's part of the carbon exchange in Chicago, big investor. You have to be let into the club. And you've got to pay them money for everything you do in your life, or you're basically a horrible earth killer. And so he will be joining us, obviously, for about 30 minutes coming up in the second hour to talk about that. We have Joe Biggs joining us from an undisclosed location. He was in upstate New York yesterday going to these different Islamic training centers. And I got a call, he got a call last night from one of the heads of the counterterrorism task force with Homeland Security because, well, we were there investigating. So that is all coming up. They're going to be traveling around the country showing this radicalization, showing some of these reported hot spots where this reported radicalization, reported trainings going on. We're sure that's not true at some locations, maybe true at others. We're investigating. And we're not planning to attack the poor little Muslims. That's basically what we were being asked by the state police, who were with Homeland Security. And I said, well, did the people say, Biggs, or anybody threatened them? No, they just got scared after they left. And so we're just, and then, of course, they knew how to call Biggs. They knew how to call Josh's phones without having their phone numbers. That's Homeland Security for you. Oh, but they let 154 illegals in last week out of Mexico that land in New York and don't even look at their passports. That's CBS News. CBS News. But don't you worry, Joe Biggs and Josh Owens and Michael Zimmerman, oh, they have all their info. In fact, they knew right where they were and right what they were doing with all the spy gadgets and the threat fusion centers and all the rest of it. Got to keep your eyes on people with no criminal records that are patriots. And you know, the state police guy was somewhat nice and pretty much apologetic about it, but this is what this government's been turned into. Now, as soon as I heard, as the show was ending yesterday, that a husband and wife team had gone into basically a Christmas party at a health department facility for mentally disabled. This guy was, environmental sciences enforcer or whatever. You know, they churn these degrees out. And he'd gone and got his wife in Saudi Arabia recently, come back, this Saeed Farouk. And as soon as Paul Watson called me about 4 o'clock and he said, nobody's reporting this, but it's Saeed Farouk. And it looks like a Arabic/Islamic name. And he was looking him up. It looks like he's Islamic. And I said, of course it probably is. He said, can I go with it? And I said, yeah, ask the question, is it Islamic terror? You can go to drudgereport.com and see the headline there from the New York Post. And it basically says the same thing. Muslim killers, terror-eyed as couple slaughters 14 in California. You better believe and know that if it was a registered Republican that had done this, you'd be hearing white Christian Republican or black Christian Republican did this. But statistically, you don't see Christian Republicans or libertarians or constitutionalists or veterans engaging in a lot of crime. Lowest crime rates across the board. It's just a FBI statistics fact. But that doesn't seem to matter because last night, CNN, all of them were saying, too early to tell, can't say it's Islamic, can't say it was terror-related. But today they're being forced to say, okay, maybe it's terror-related or maybe they're mentally ill. They tried to spin it too. Oh, part of the health department deals with mental health. And of course, a whole bunch of other departments in it. But maybe it's mentally ill people. And then Democrats came out and did prayer shaming. That story's up on Infowars.com and said, how dare you put out prayers on Twitter for the families. Do something, ban the guns. The guns are banned in Syria, and that just let al-Qaeda come in and murder everybody because they had guns. The guns are pretty much banned in places like Paris, and they went and killed an unarmed crowd. And now, under political correctness, they admit that it was known that something was being planned and that nothing was done. Remember, for 4 years, they said, until a couple years ago, that the Fort Hood shooter, Hassan, who killed 14 people, Major Hassan, wounded scores of others, was not an Islamic terrorist. When he was in direct communication with the leaders of al-Qaeda, and the CIA wanted it classified, but Congress had hearings and admitted it. For 2 years, he was protected at that base while communicating with the #2 guy in al-Qaeda. Look it up. And then he was allowed to run around and murder whoever he wants. There's the headline: Pentagon will not label Fort Hood shooting a terror attack. And that's exactly what they said about the Army, Navy, Marine Corps shoot-ups that have happened, the military bases that have been attacked, you name it. Truly, absolutely, over the top, Soviet-level brainwashing in this country. I mean, it's beyond even photoshopping people out of photos. Things that the Soviets would do with an old-fashioned airbrush. Now, we sit back, we look at this. There's so many stories within this story. They are bringing in record numbers of these people. A global Sunni caliphate jihad has been declared against Shiites, against Christians, against Jews, against agnostics, against animists, against Buddhists, against Hindus, against everybody but the Sunnis. Now, most Sunnis, and I've looked at the demographics, don't want to be radical. And they get henpecked and attacked and religious policed. They get gone after by the radical sect at the center of Sunni Islamic religion that is the group that controls and dominates Mecca, and that is the literal bandits of the House of Saud, who were just a small bandit clan that would rob the caravans and control the entrance into Mecca and Medina. And that's all they are. And they are the absolute most crazed, murderous cult you can imagine. And that's who al-Qaeda and al-Nusra and all these people are. That's who they are. And they're the enemy. And you watch, it's going to come out this guy's connected to ISIS. It's going to come out he's a sympathizer. It's going to come out he's a Wahhabist. His wife came from Saudi Arabia a few months ago. He went over there and got his bride, and this country let him bring his bride into this country so they could go into a Christmas party and kill a bunch of liberal Americans. See, San Bernardino, you bent over to all of this. You were politically correct. You flagellated yourself figuratively with bullwhips. And now Saeed Farouk and Tashin Malik had an IED factory in their home. We just learned minutes ago as the police finally got into the house and were able to secure it. Oh, is it terrorism now? And you watch, they're going to use these attacks that are already going on to set up armored vehicles, checkpoints, police states, all these systems that they claim are going to be to protect us, and then it's going to be used against the gun owners, the veterans, the Tea Party, and the Patriots. And you say, well, the cops won't do that. Oh, yeah, they're going to be wearing body cams. They're going to be ordered with earpieces like robots to follow the exact orders of the social engineers and the Homeland Security leftists back at the threat fusion centers. Because it's true that the police and military know about this fraud and are upset about it. The problem is they're being globalized and federalized where they don't have any capability to make decisions based on the facts they see moment to moment, and to have that discretion. They're no longer police officers. They're now robots. They're now biological androids when they follow these orders. And that's why they're sending in the thought police and the Black Lives Matter and the George Soros garbage and all the rest of it right now. They're doing all of this right now because they're about to overthrow local governments through political correctness and bring their globalization and control in. Now, we do have clips of Donald Trump coming up, some of the highlights from the broadcast yesterday. And the Donald Trump story is basically the same as this story. The mainstream dinosaur media trying to spin that this isn't Islamic terror, and it being so obvious it's blowing up in their face, and Donald Trump coming on, and the media not responding to anything he said, other than the fact that he said, I've got a lot of credibility and a good reputation with people he respects. Wonder who he's talking about. The point is, they then misrepresent in all these articles, over 2,000 of them. Look at this Vanity Fair. It's the perfect example of deception. They twist and misrepresent more than 10 things that I supposedly believe. They say, I believe there was no moon landing. Everyone knows I detail that I believe there was a moon landing, and there's also a larger secret space program they admit's going on. I've been criticized for saying the moon landings I believe were real. They don't even show where I said that. They just lie. That's what they do. I want to just say something, and I want to give thanks. I was thinking about this morning for the providence and the support that God has given InfoWars. And I want to thank God for the great crew, the great reporters, and the people behind the scenes that make this possible. And you, the viewers and listeners, our affiliates, the station owners, managers, our sponsors, everybody. You have made this operation possible. I get so angry fighting the globalist that I kind of overheat sometimes, like a football coach that gets mad on the sidelines, even when you're winning the game, because it just means everything to me. But at least we're awake and trying to do something. I see other people that think this is all a joke, and it makes me think of the passage from the famous song, All Along the Watchtower, where Jimi Hendrix says, there are many here among us who think that life is but a joke. But you and I, we've been through that. This is not our fate. So let us stop talking falsely now, because the hour is getting late. And that's why Donald Trump came on this show. Was to be radical. Was to get in the face of the system. Was to have them come out and attack him as a 9/11 truther so he can bring up the 28 pages and the rest of it. And they've partially taken the bait, but not completely. And I've had some behind-the-scenes conversations with some of his campaign people, and I've had some short behind-the-scenes conversations with Donald Trump, that if the media knew about those, they'd really be freaking out and running around screaming. So am I 100% sold on Donald Trump? No. I mean, I was 50, 60% for him, months ago, still ambiguous. And but the stuff he's been doing has been so positive. Just the facts he's bringing up are so incendiary to the other side that we have to defend him, because the ideas he's putting out in general are very good. I like Rand Paul. I like Ted Cruz. I like Donald Trump. And then I watched Donald Trump be misrepresented in the media, and I'm going to talk about this later after Joe Biggs leaves us and Paul Watson leaves us. I'm going to have them all on together coming up in the next segment. I see what they do to him. It's what they do to me. I mean, they get on the news and say, Alex Jones is a 9/11 truther. He believes the New York Police Department blew up the towers. That's a quote from Bill O'Reilly and people more than a decade ago. No, I said Saudi Arabia was involved. Our government stood down, bare minimum. The 28 pages now show that. I talked to the top experts involved. I interviewed the police officers that were there that talked about the countdown to blow up Building 7. We don't know exactly what happened, but we're not being given the truth about 9/11, just like we notice Obama is basically running ISIS right now. This rabbit hole goes deep, people. Why is the government of Europe and the United States bringing in millions of jihadis that just attacked us again out in California, and the media is practicing covering this up and saying, turn our guns in? They said in literally over 100 articles that I had time to even glance at. It's a talking point that Trump goes on man's show who believes moon landing didn't happen. Whenever they brought up to Al Gore that global warming had stopped 10 years ago in Congress, he said, oh, and you believe the moon landings didn't happen. That is a default statement. Now, I say the moon landings happened, and I detail that. And I get criticized by the people on the other side that think they're fake. Think it's fake if you want. I've done the research. I know it's real. But I certainly don't deserve the media, without a link of where I said it, saying the moon landings didn't happen. But see, that's how they deceive their audiences, and that's why they're losing credibility. Paul, we're going to break in a moment, but getting back to this Saeed Farouk and his wife from Saudi Arabia, man, they're really trying to spin this and say it's not Islamic terror, but now they found IEDs, improvised explosive devices, at their house. This is, I mean, can Obama handle this? Will he be able to spin this?
Well, they've basically found a bomb factory in the guy's house. Of course, he had pipe bombs, body armor, GoPro cameras strapped to his body, along with his jihadist wife.
This is
But
totally
Obama's
premeditated, total terrorism.
Yeah, but Obama's still out saying it could, it could be workplace grievance. They could have had a little argument that just got out of control, which ended up in him massacring 14 people, wounding, over a dozen others. And even CNN right now is still reporting that law enforcement sources say it could still be a workplace grievance, because that's what you do when you have a little tiff, a little argument with somebody at work. You go back home, get bombs and AK-47s and start massacring them. I mean, that's what any normal person would do, right?
And Paul, come back and talk more about this with Joe Biggs from an undisclosed location in New York. That Homeland Security basically come after him for daring to go show some of the little Islamo palaces that are being set up. We'll be back. Stay there. Paul Joseph Watson. They're in a mop-up operation, federalizing local police and governments right now. The feds themselves are run by offshore corporations that are above the law, tax exempt. Joe Biggs joins us from an undisclosed location here in a moment in upstate New York. And we're not being dramatic about this. He got a call, I got a call by the Joint Terrorism Task Force, one of the head guys. I've got his name right here on my phone. Wanting to know why they were up at this Islamicist center, one of the more famous ones. And we explained, well, just like we said on air, we're investigating the American Caliphate. We're going to be all over the United States. Well, we just wanted to make sure because, after what just happened with this shooting in California, that this isn't some type of response up here by you. And obviously we understand that that's not what you're planning. And I just said, I'm actually talking to a state police guy, senior, halfway asking us if we're planning violence. It's ridiculous. But this is how they turn it around. And this is the culture that gets pushed now. Can you imagine if a Christian or a conservative or a libertarian or a veteran had just killed 14 people at a Christmas party in San Bernardino, California? This last guy was a cross-dressing mental patient with sex crime background who was a Democrat. It's all come out now. But it didn't matter. The first 2 days, they said he was a Republican. And just statistically, just like Senator Cruz said a few days ago, you can say what you want about conservatives, libertarians, Republicans, veterans. They have the lowest crime rate statistically there is. It's a fact. Black Republicans have the lowest crime rate in a racial spread of blacks. White Republicans have the lowest crime rate in a racial spread of whites. Asian Republicans have the lowest crime rate in a racial spread of Asians. Hispanics, same deal. It is a fact. It is a unequivocal fact by giant margins. And you people try to continue to act like veterans, gun owners, conservatives, Christians, libertarians, constitutionalists, red-blooded Americans are the problem, and we're terrorists, and we're going to kill everybody, and all you got to point to is Oklahoma City that was as phony as the $3 bill. That's one thing Vanity Fair, CNN, and literally 2,000-plus publications got right, was when they said, an Oklahoma City truther. Donald Trump comes on Oklahoma City Truther's show. Yeah, you're right. I've interviewed the police officers, the witnesses, the general that exposed it all. I've got the hotel receipts. WorldNet Daily got them. LA Times interviewed the FBI agents that blew the whistle about all the other guys that were with McVeigh. But they were federal agents, folks. CIA, FBI, ATF, and German intelligence. And the FBI guys came out and were in the LA Times talking about this. I mean, I've just done my research. But they know the public sector, so they go, there were no Muslims celebrating. Donald Trump is a liar. In fact, they're even saying now at 2 different soccer games that no one yelled Allah Akbar as an insult during the minute of silence for the French attacks. And, of course, it was. And so we're going to now go to Joe Biggs, and Paul Joseph Watson's going to be coming back with us some as well. Joe is in the snow out there right now. We'll be coming back to Paul Watson in a moment. And we're, again, undisclosed location because we've got Homeland Security, the state police, and we've got these different training centers. We don't want folks to know where we're at, where we're going to be going next. Joe Big, tell folks about the last 48 hours, what you've witnessed, what's happened as you stand out in a field in the snow.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, the government knows that there's these sleeper cells all over the country, and yet they can never find them until after an attack happens. Yet Josh and I go to Islamberg. I give my name only and number at the gate so I can be reached and contacted by their, PR guy. And you've got this terrorism task force guy calling me. Then you've got him calling Josh. How did he even know Josh was there? I've never even mentioned his name on this trip. And the state police guy with the terrorism task force goes, hey, don't worry about it. We have this kind of technology. I can't tell you what it is, but we know everything you're doing. So you're meaning to tell me that you can find these people before they do this stuff, which shows me that you're allowing it to happen. The attack yesterday in San Bernardino, they're saying that there was a spur-of-the-moment thing because of a dispute at a party. I'm sorry. You don't have pipe bombs and all these guns with a dispute at a party. That's completely and totally premeditated.
When you got blown up twice in armored vehicles in Iraq and Afghanistan, was that about disputes at parties when they were firing RPGs at you?
Negative.
Oh.
I mean, that's that is a premeditated thing. And the fact that the mainstream media is coming out and using this new term, assault clothing. What is assault clothing, Alex? I've never heard of that in my entire life.
Well, they're spinning it like he was just into assault clothing. Nothing was planned. How are they going to cover up when they've covered up the Marine Corps Center's attacks, the Fort Hood attack said that wasn't terrorism? How many more of our own Parises are we going to have that they're going to cover up?
I mean, the interesting thing about yesterday is that social media knew the name of this guy, Saeed Farouk. The whole day, everyone knew that this is who the guy was. Mainstream media didn't even release it last night until about 11:30 p.m. our time over here. Because the whole time they were scared to say the name because they thought it would offend somebody. And immediately after releasing this guy's name, then they bring in this whole Muslim group to speak on Fox and CNN, and they condemn everything, blah, blah, blah. But I guarantee you, if that was a white guy, they would have been all over that. That would have been terrorism from the get-go. And they would have started condemning white people and saying that Christians are out to kill everybody and we're the actual radicals. We got to take the guns away. I mean, we talk about the government taking the guns away, but they were in full force last night, Alex. I was watching between CNN and Fox and MSNBC in my hotel room. I heard each single channel say that we should take guns away from law-abiding citizens, and then we should destroy all the guns and try to start over again. That's what's happening right now. When you have politicians like Hillary Clinton coming out and immediately, within minutes, using it to push this anti-gun agenda, you know that there's something going on. And especially at the Inland Regional Center, there has been active shooter drills there for the past few months. The nurse that was inside there was filming, going, oh, my God, texting her husband at the same time. Hey, another drill just started, and then 10 minutes into texting, she's telling her husband, oh, I think this is real now. But if you go back and look, they said that 14 people died in those active shooter drills. 14 people died, apparently, in this real incident. So there's something fishy going on. This is one of those that has false flag written all over it, without a doubt.
Yeah, I'm here to tell you, and by false flag, that means they could have known he was going to do it and let him do it, and then they cover up that it's Islamic, turn it around and blame the Second Amendment and George Washington instead of the very people that are doing this, mentally ill, cross-dresser liberals and crazy jihadis. I mean, these are the constituents.
The SWAT team was already geared up and there within seconds. They were geared up and ready within seconds. They knew that this was going to happen.
Well, notice it's a Democrat-controlled state, and they want to demonize the Second Amendment.
Hillary Clinton's already coming out saying we need more gun control. I guess she doesn't know much about the state of California, but it has some of the strictest gun control laws there is in the country. I mean, look at the regulations on these long guns, assault rifles that they keep talking about.
Absolutely. Now, listen,
the weapons they found on the suspects were police weapons. Police handguns.
Wow, I didn't know that. I knew that they were military style. You're saying these are guns they got?
The handguns that they use, they said they were the M&P or the Smith & Wesson handguns, police issued. And these guys have ski masks rolling around. That's what they were using. In
Oh
some of
my
these
gosh!
active
You mean
shooter
they
drills.
had police-issued guns? Whoa!
They're even reporting that. I think it was on NBC that I saw it earlier.
That is insane. What was the headline on that? I want to pull that up. Now, Joe, I want you to continue with your analysis. Also shoot some live feed reports if you'd like from Infowars.com. But I'm going to go back to Paul Watson here in a moment. But obviously, you're going to be traveling around the country to different sites that are known to have training going on, some of it paramilitary, religious indoctrination, you name it. You described pulling up, you've got footage that'll be out soon from your hidden camera, to a guard shack, a car blocking the road, and then these are the folks that call the state police on you with Homeland Security who were then tracking everything you did. Did you say anything threatening to these people?
Oh, negative at all. I was very nice. I came over and shook their hand, told them what I was there for. And as I approached the gate, the guy stepped out of the car. You know, I talked to him. I gave him my name and number. And then one vehicle pulled up. Two guys got out. One started walking around me. A guy was questioning me. And then another vehicle came up, and they got out and started looking at me. So they were definitely, you know, out there on heightened alert. You know, there have been reports that they carry a lot of guns around there. So I didn't personally see any guns on anybody, but who's to say what was inside those vehicles?
Well, again, it's okay for them to have guns. We're going to have ours. That's how this isn't going to be where the left just takes our guns but lets their jihadis have them. And people say, oh, the state police got your number from you. No, that was the thing. Well, he must have written Biggs's number down because the number didn't work, so we used our system to get their numbers. And it's like, yes, we know there's a whole NSA tracking grid, Stingray systems, integrated systems where you get all of our data, and the point is none of it keeps us safe. A plane flew in from California last week with 140-plus illegals on it into JFK, and they just didn't even check their passports and just let them go. This is a total fraud. This is a setup to allow this to happen and then go after our guns. What else can you report to folks, Joe Biggs?
Well, I mean, obviously, the TSA hasn't stopped anything. They've had these recent polls coming out where there's more weapons, there's more ammunition to get through now with the TSA there than ever before. So this is all complete and total BS. It's all fear-mongering. It's all to get you to take your liberties away while installing this fear in this police state to track your every single movement. That's why they want the driverless cars, so they can watch you everywhere you go. You know, people think these Stingray technologies, you know, are a bunch of, you know, crazy loony stuff. No, I'm telling you, when you're sitting there driving around and two of the guys that are with you, you know, people are calling them, and how do they know that they're even here with me? So there's definitely a lot of stuff going on. The spying is in full effect. They look at us as the #1 threat. They look at these Syrian refugees, these people coming over from the other countries, as fine. But it's us. It's me and you, the patriot, the American. We're the ones who are the terrorists. They hate us.
Yeah, and that is the people on top calling the shots. I don't think the state police guy hates us. He seemed pretty nice and somewhat apologetic. But still, it doesn't matter. It's still going on. I mean, they all know who we are. They know we're not going to attack anybody. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, we're just here to expose what's going on and report on the facts, something that the mainstream media is lacking in.
Well, believe me, the police have their hands tied, and they're sick of it as well. That's why people are waking up so fast inside the system, because this is just getting crazy. Okay, Joe, we're going to probably pop in with you again in the 4th hour today of Overdrive. I know you're finding a lot of reports for the Nightly News, 7 o'clock Central, and I know you got some of that footage we're about to put out and more. You're moving on to your next site, so we won't put out any info on that until you've been there and gotten some reconnaissance legally and lawfully in the area. I know you're also going to be deploying some other legal and lawful systems to detail and document. So Godspeed. We'll be praying for you and Josh and Mr. Zimmerman.
Thank you.
All right, there goes Joe Biggs from upstate New York, standing in the snow. Let's go now to Paul Watson. Paul, you got on a few minutes before we went to break. Go ahead and expand on the situation. It really is crazy when you're informed and even halfway paying attention to watch jihad, Wahhabist attacks happening all over the world, whether it's Mali or Kenya or whether it's areas of Syria or whether it's areas of the Middle East or Russia or the United States, and to have the media say it's not Islamic and then to blame American gun owners. Paul, it reminds me of Obama grandstanding with Halan 2 days ago saying, we're going to pass climate change global government to stand up to the jihadis, when they're the ones that brought the jihadis in. I mean, are people going to make this connection, or will the mainstream media succeed in covering this up?
Well, it's the narrative is collapsing because now it's emerged that this guy was radicalized. We know he just recently returned from Saudi Arabia. But still, NBC is reporting that he might have been triggered by the Christmas party that he attended before this rampage.
I said, did I call you this morning at 9:30 and I said, put out an article saying I bet he got triggered by a Christmas tree? Not seriously, but knowing that's what they do. See? Well, then the people deserve to die because of the Christmas tree. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, if he was offended, then obviously the victims are to blame for provoking him, right? That was the argument after Charlie Hebdo. Those cartoonists deserved to get massacred because they were provoking the precious Muslims. So again, the whole narrative, as soon as this came out, there was a report that it was 3 white guys, completely unconfirmed, when for hours on the police scanner, which I was listening to, they kept saying over and over again, Saeed Farouk, Middle Eastern man, Middle Eastern woman, long beard. That was on the police scanner for hours. And for hours, the left, and I'm not just talking about people on Twitter with 3 followers, I'm talking about the Marcos out of the Daily Kos, the former CIA staffer. These big left-wing people, Hillary Clinton came out within minutes, blamed it on the Second Amendment, came out immediately and blamed it on all white people. And I've compiled some of these tweets in my video, which has just gone up on Infowars.com. So for hours, they were saying, white terrorism, this is white terrorism. Why doesn't media say it's white terrorism? Then as soon as it emerges that it's a Muslim and his jihadist wife, obviously workplace violence, nothing to see here. Let's all
Christmas trees are evil, though.
Yeah. So now they're saying...
Think about what freaks these people are at CNN, ABC News, MSNBC. Can you imagine getting up in the morning and looking in the mirror and being just such sniveling, evil, twisting fraudsters? Paul, have you seen, just as a separate issue of deception, these articles from Vanity Fair to CNN's top stories where they just misrepresent and twist everything I stand for and then say that Donald Trump now supports all that? You talk about deception. These people really are criminals.
Yeah, there were articles actually trying to link you and Donald Trump with the San Bernardino shooting in the hours after.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, this is like Trump appears on the Alex Jones show right before the San Bernardino shooting. Like, how is that connected in any way? Like, you're responsible for it because you had Trump on your radio show. Completely ludicrous. And then all these tweets, which are in this video. So when are we going to start classifying white men as terrorists? Maybe we should put white conservative men in concentration camps. We can eliminate mass shootings by making it illegal for white men ages 15 to 65 to own guns. There was a deluge of these tweets and posts. Alan Combs said it was a shooting that probably was targeted against Planned Parenthood, which was 2 miles away. This was in the immediate aftermath of when this shooting first was reported on the media. And of course, when it came out, when their narrative completely collapsed, they all stopped talking about it and moved on to whatever else. And now, if you look, for example, at Salon.com's front page, you have to scroll right down to the bottom to even find a mention of this shooting. So again, they tried to exploit it to demonize conservatives, to demonize the Second Amendment.
And when they can't, they just deep six it like Major Hassan, the Marine Corps recruiting centers, and all the other attacks.
Yeah, and it was like after the Paris massacre, don't blame it on Muslims. Fine, fair enough, but you have to analyze the religion of Islam because it's violent and intolerant, and that is what motivates some of these people. So don't blame everything on gun owners. Analyze the motives of the individual and where their beliefs come from.
And stop trying to have tolerant Western men sit down when they urinate. That's a feminist thing where they make, young boys do that to dominate them as part of sexual harassment by the bizarre CIA-run feminist cult of Gloria Steinem. We want women to be free. We know you want to have headdresses on and be mutilated, but we're not going to let you do that to yourselves, liberals. Here's Obama's statement on the jihad attack.
Some way out of here.
We don't know that much yet. It's still an active situation. FBI is on the ground offering assistance to local officials as they need it. It does appear that there are going to be some casualties. And,
of your jihadis?
Obviously our hearts go out to the victims and the families.
No, of course.
The one thing we do know is that we have a pattern now of mass shootings in this country that has no parallel anywhere else in the world. And there's some steps we could take, not to eliminate every one of these mass shootings, but to improve the odds that they don't happen as frequently. Common sense gun safety laws, stronger background checks, and for those who are concerned about terrorism, some may be aware of the fact that we have a no-fly list where people can't get on planes, but those same people who we don't allow to fly could go into a store right now in the United States and buy a firearm, and there's nothing that we can do to stop them.
That is directly from Rahm Emanuel when he was the White House chief of staff saying, we need a no-gun buy list. Folks, they got millions of innocent people on those lists. It's no judge, no jury. They let the jihadis fly back and forth. They let folks with no passports come in. But he goes, hey, we don't have anything to surveil anybody. We don't have any technology. We can just track the InfoWars reporters everywhere they go and know who's there and call their cell phones up. But we have no idea about any of this. We don't understand what's happening. Then he goes on to say, it's unparalleled in human experience, this. You funded jihadis that have killed 300,000 people or more in Syria over the last 4.5 years, Obama. These very people run around and murder folks, men, women, and children. What we have is a media that hypes up mass shootings to an unparalleled level. We're 330 million people. You got some crazy cross-dresser on a bunch of drugs, goes and shoots some Planned Parenthood people, some cops. One of your people, as usual, one of your mentally ill scumbags. And then now you've got this guy from Saudi Arabia with his new bride only being here a few months, running around with bomb factories, and you're blaming Americans for it. And I'm telling you, it's, they could uptick this. Right now, mass shootings are flat. It's a very low probability of death in this country. But let me tell you, they hype enough of this, and just all these weird, drugged-out socialist zombies, it'll be their duty to go get a gun because they're so anti-gun and start shooting people in just a big false flag fit to blame the Second Amendment because they hate us and they want to dominate us because we're the producers. We're going to go to break, come back with 5 more minutes with Paul Joseph Watson. Then we have the founder of the Weather Channel joining us to talk about this global government conference that's happening right now in Paris, France, that's so important. Then we'll continue up to 30 minutes of that, back into phone calls, guests. Jakari Jackson's going to go out and to local Christmas trees that the city and state have put up and ask folks if those should be banned because the jihadis might get upset. We should print off the NBC story. It's a trigger for the jihadis and their bomb factories if they see an evil Christmas tree. So we better ban those immediately. By the way, this Thursday, December 3rd, specials, we're extending free shipping right through December 18th. The last date you're guaranteed to get it if you're in the United States before Christmas is 30% off Brain Force. It ends at midnight tonight. That's been running for a week. That ends tonight at midnight. That will end. $9.95 Silver Bullet, unprecedented, 2-ounce bottle of 30 parts per million, super high quality. You will not find it anywhere else, anywhere near that. $9.95. 30% off X2 Nascent Iodine, ultra massive. 20% off InfoWars Select Storable Food. And as the week goes on, those specials are ending. One ends each day. Today it's Brain Force, ends at midnight. Amazing supplement. Check it out for yourself. You're fighting the tip of the spear in the InfoWar. InfoWarsLife.com, InfoWarsStore.com, or 888-253-3139. And you're funding the very tip of the spear. We're exposing these globalists. Thank you all for your support. But these are really great products. Super Mill Vitality, you name it. Try it out. Paul, I know you're churning out reports, analysis, you name it. You were reporting in the afternoon the guy's name. Michael Savage was reporting it at WorldNet Daily and on his show hours before. I want to get Michael Savage on to get his take on this. The attack is happening. They want to use the attacks with one hand to take our freedoms and take our guns, but on the other side, bring in the jihadis. I mean, this is just too rich that, he just went and got his bride to Saudi Arabia and came back. And the clerics have called for a jihad on America. It's happening. It's happening in Europe. And it is a real radical attack, but it is a false flag in that evidence is emerging. They brought these people in. They knew what they were going to do. They're allowing them to attack us. So somehow we've got to explain that, not to our listeners, but to the rest of the population, that, look, a false flag doesn't just mean the government did it all. But if the government brings them in, then that's still a false flag. Right, Paul?
Well, you remember Obama said, why is everyone worried about Syrian orphans and mothers? This accomplice in this attack, this woman, went and dumped a, 6-month-old baby on a grandma before she went on this rampage. So it's not whether they're mothers or what. A lot of these Islamic terrorists are women. They're called black widows. It's a known phenomenon.
Obama just said, look in Israel, all the stabbings. Obama just said a couple days ago again, ISIS no threat in America.
Yeah, and the other thing is, political correctness. Remember the Bryce Williams shooting of the TV reporters on air? That was motivated by him alleging they made, racist comments towards him. Now we have, in this case, the neighbors of this shooter, Farouk, who said they didn't report him to authorities because they were afraid they'd be called racist because it was racial profiling, even though they were seeing these package deliveries over and over again, these odd deliveries. Other neighbors reported 3 to 4 Middle Easterners recently moved into the area. CBS reported more neighbors who said they didn't say anything because they didn't want to racially profile these people. So again, the concerns of political correctness have been put above genuine, rational security concerns, and it's wound up with 14 people dead, just as it did with the Bryce Williams situation.
Well, look, they're going to start being jihad attacks in the West every week, Paul, and I've been saying this for months. It's happening. I think they've jumped the shark. I think they've gone too far, doubling down and saying there's no such thing as Islamic terror. They're not going to get away with this.
Oh, obviously, it can be defeated by waffling on about climate change in front of the UN. Your president is actually now saying that on a weekly basis. That's how ludicrous it's become. And then the other thing was Trump and these other Republicans, Ted Cruz, tweeted out, all our prayers are with the victims of the San Bernardino attack. And then the left and the media and the New York Daily News said, prayer for the victims is not going to fix this. Only complete gun control is going to fix this. So they actually basically crapped upon everyone who just said, this is really terrible, I'm praying for the victims, to push their gun control agenda. As soon as it came out, it wasn't a white Christian conservative, that all collapsed again. So, this has been really embarrassing for the left, and it proves they will exploit feverishly anything before the bodies are cold to push this radical gun control
because agenda. They have this irrational hatred of freedom and irrational hatred of the republic and the irrational hatred of the family. They really are a sick cult of scum who want total global power and wanted carbon taxes. Paul, continue the great work at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. We'll be back. We're now into the second hour until about 40 after or so. We've got a really amazing guest, extremely informative, and also in this day and age has a lot of courage to engage in the First Amendment. John Coleman, meteorologist, the original national weatherman on Good Morning America, the founder of the Weather Channel. We're going to be talking to him in a moment. But obviously everybody's focused on the dead, the 14 dead in San Bernardino. And just minutes ago during the break, I was watching CNN and their supposed coverage of a live press conference of the FBI and others. And they're getting up there saying, too early to say it's terrorism, don't say it's terror. Okay, the police now say they had a bomb factory at their house, basically suicide vest, tactical gear, GoPros to videotape the killing that jihadis do. They said for 4 years the Fort Hood shooter, Major Hassan, was not jihad. Of course, he talked to the head of al-Qaeda, said he was going to do it. It was a jihad, and they've now admitted that. The attack on the Marine Corps recruiting center and those killed, they said, oh, no, this isn't Islamic terror. Of course, it was. They couldn't say that about Paris, though they tried. Or Charlie Hebdo or the rest of it. So this is happening. This guy had brought his bride into the country. NBC News is saying maybe he was triggered by the Christmas party and a Christmas tree. We even have a clip of that coming up after our guest leaves us. But this is sick, folks. This is getting sicker and sicker and sicker by the minute. That when we get attacked by these folks, there's such political correctness that even neighbors have admitted, well, we didn't want to report because they were Islamic, that we saw suspicious things going on. Well, they've now been killed in a hail of gunfire with the police, obviously, in a chase yesterday. And the answer by the controlled left is, we the people should turn our guns in so we can be safe from the jihadis that they're now reporting somehow got police-issued weapons. So, to get this straight for the mainstream media, I'm not saying the government did this and it's a false flag. I'm saying the Obama administration letting this guy come in with his radicalized wife, protecting people, Hollande opening the French borders, all of this, they are directly connected to allowing this to happen and are aiding and abetting it. We now have the Detroit police chief coming out today and saying armed citizens deter terrorist attacks in Detroit, police chief says. And the head of Interpol said, where they have gun control in Kenya, he said, we should arm the Kenyans. That's how we answer these terrorist attacks against jihadis. Now, shifting gears to John Coleman, founder of the Weather Channel on cable television. Coleman was also the original weathercaster on the ABC Network morning program, Good Morning America. For many years, he was a full professional member of the American Meteorological Society. He's a meteorologist, obviously, and was once honored as Broadcast Meteorologist of the Year. Coleman had a 61-year career in television, extending from the campaign from Champaign, Illinois, to Milwaukee, Chicago, New York City. And Coleman has become very active in his efforts to counter the global warming climate change frenzy. His studies of the climate data convinced him that there is no significant man-made global warming, and his beloved science and meteorology has been hijacked by a cadre of politicians and environmentalists and the scientists who they generously fund to provide scientific papers supporting their failed theory. And boy, has that really been proven true now with Hide the Decline, Climate Gate. It's about a global tax. And as Vladimir Putin said, it's about shutting down industrial nations and letting other nations operate. China can operate, India can operate, but we can't. JohnColemanBlog.com is his website. Sir, thank you so much for coming on with us and your tireless work. You know, now they call for arresting people in Europe who question man-made climate change, just now climate change, not warming, and they're even talking about it in America, going after people for their speech. They're doing an investigation, as you know, I would imagine, in New York State.
Imagine this, Alex. I take great risk. I have my Christmas tree up in my living room here in San Diego, just 100 miles from San Bernardino.
That's
so is that
wow.
a beautiful Christmas tree? And is it going to stimulate someone to attack me? I think not, because for the most part, we're peaceful. But you're right. We certainly have some strange and awful people among us. And those events such as happened in San Bernardino touch our hearts, believe me, and keep us alert because we know that any day something can happen.
Absolutely. And it is a sick testament that you have to, you know, make a comment about having an offensive, evil, beautiful Christmas tree. In fact, I want to say yours is quite nice.
Not bad at all. My wife and I decorated that yesterday and enjoyed it a lot. But she made me turn off the San Bernardino coverage while we were decorating. And I think she was right about that. Enjoy Christmas as best you can. Now, while I'm enjoying Christmas, over in Paris, they are 185 nations. Can you imagine? 40,000 people gathered, all over bad science, a totally false premise. And it just drives me nutty. I want to show you the man who passed away about 5 days ago, Maurice Strong. Maurice is the man behind this. Have you ever heard of him, Alex?
I have, but a lot of folks haven't. Tell us all about him.
Well, Maurice was a sort of an oil baron in Canada, interestingly enough. But the other side of him was he was a one-world kind of guy. He joined the United Nations as an undersecretary, and he wanted us to have a one-world government. And when he saw how Al Gore was succeeding with climate change, then global warming in the United States, he snapped onto that. And he threw the first International Earth Day in Stockholm back in '72. And out of that was able to grow the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. So that big meeting in Paris, Maurice Strong started it. He was the man. He made it happen. And he was his, and if you look at interviews with him, he said that he was looking for a way to create one world government. That was his plan. And by using global warming, he was going to tax the rich nations of the world to pay the poor nations of the world and create this one equal nation of the world, as it were, a global government. So Maurice Strong, this was his life's work. Well, he passed away 4 days before this giant event began in Paris, but he had already been retired because he got caught with his hands in the cookie jar during the oil for food thing following the war in Afghanistan, when suddenly a check for about $900,000 to him from the UN showed up. And he said, oh, yeah, and retired to Shanghai or Beijing. I've seen both. And that's where he passed away in the last few days. So he created this great United Nations global warming frenzy. And now we have 185 nations negotiating. The negotiations, as usual, have run into a snag because the rich nations who have to pay the poor nations are holding back a little, and they want some money from the poor nations. The poor nations say, wait a minute, you give us the money, guys, so we'll see how this whole thing comes out in Paris. In any case, it's all because of so-called global warming. Well, did you know there hasn't been any global warming of any significance in almost 20 years? So there are young people now, 19 years old, married, having children, maybe in the military, college graduates, 19 years old, and during their lifetimes, the Earth has not really warmed. That is an amazing, amazing thing. There's little ups and downs in that chart. See them there? Of that warming. But that warming is that those ups and downs are a tenth of a degree. That's not degrees, that's even hundredths of a degree. So now we have such political silliness that if the temperature peaks up just a little bit by, let's say, 2/100ths of a degree, suddenly they start screaming that it's the warmest it ever was. Well, that's sheer and total nonsense. First of all, think about it. When I was a kid, I'm 81 years old. When I was a kid, a thermometer was a little stick of wood with a little tube of mercury attached to it. And the best you could possibly read the temperature was within 1 or 2 degrees. I mean, its accuracy was pretty questionable. And now they're telling us we have records because of hundredths of a degree. You've got to be kidding. If you look at the pattern over, let's say, the last 1,000 years, temperatures have gone up and down. We had the medieval warm period. We had the little ice age. And you see that little squiggle on the extreme right-hand side of your screen, the last little red squiggle on this chart? That's the warming of the 20th century into the 21st century. It is nothing. It is insignificant. And it is far less than the medieval warm period. And they're telling us it's the warmest Earth has ever been. You know why that is? They've manipulated the data. It's an amazing thing.
And we even caught them with the Copenhagen documents. We even caught them with the hide the decline emails, but they are so committed to this that they just continue to move forward.
Well, they do whatever they can. It's a screaming outrage. This is our federal government, NOAA, the National Weather Service, at its National Data Climate Center down in Charleston, South Carolina. These people have manipulated the temperatures 4 times. And in the process, they have made the past cooler, so the present is comparatively warmer. Only by a degree or 2, but enough for them to scream and holler about global warming. Now, the whole thing, Alex, is blamed on what? What's the bedrock? Do you know?
CO2.
You got it, my friend. I know you're a very well-informed man, by the way.
Oh, no.
By the way, my wife and I visited both Austin and San Antonio last year. Wonderful, beautiful cities. It's certainly a great place to live. But if you look at the long-term temperatures and CO2 of planet Earth as determined by the ice cores dug near in Antarctica, near the South Pole, you find that the CO2 has been up and down, and it tends to follow temperatures, not vice versa. In other words, CO2 doesn't drive the temperatures up. The temperatures cause the CO2 to
Sure,
increase.
and in Al Gore's film, this was found in British court, for those that don't know, that he had flipped, basically, where he has temperature following CO2. And I understand that you're a top meteorologist, John Coleman, founder of the Weather Channel, JohnColemanBlog.com. A lot of my listeners are informed. They know all about you, what you've done, your tireless work. And I want to get into more of the science with you. But specifically, though, back to Maurice Strong, the David Rockefeller, the UN, if they can tax carbon, they can track all human activity. They can selectively pick winners and losers. General Electric by Obama was given, as you know, 2,000-plus waivers to operate coal power plants the last 7 years. Their competitors weren't. They had to shut down. So this is all about raw power. And what you explained earlier is so key. They're making a bunch of money and getting power out of this. It's not like they're well-meaning, misguided idiot liberals who want to save the earth and are just worried about CO2. this is their way of taxing and controlling the entire carbon cycle, and they're trying to ram through these global treaties to do it. And I really think, you know, the diabolical nature of that needs to be exposed.
Well, I'm shocked when Al Gore is put on television and no one calls him to task when he screams about tons and tons of carbon spewing into the atmosphere. That's sheer nonsense. What we are emitting is, yes, tons and tons of carbon dioxide, an odorless, tasteless, invisible gas that is essential to life.
And it's a trace.
Has been in the atmosphere forever. And man has contributed just a tiny amount to it, and it's still less than 0.5%.
Well, sir, you're the expert on this, but I've had astrophysicists on, I've had historians on. During the warmer periods going back over hundreds of thousands of years, it's a boom time for plants, animals, humans. We see the booms in civilization during these warming periods. And also, CO2 has been much higher in our history and is associated with higher oxygen levels, plants growing better, better health. I mean, isn't the Earth, if you look back over the last 1,000 years from ice core samples, actually in a CO2-starved position? Isn't CO2 a tiny trace gas?
Absolutely. And yes, we desperately need more, not less. Here in Southern California, where I live, they pump CO2 in large quantities into the greenhouses in order to make the flowers grow faster. You know, we supply all those flowers for the whole nation. Your Christmas and Thanksgiving bouquets all come from greenhouses here, loaded with carbon dioxide, CO2. I have a friend who is a great submariner and set many records in his submarining days. And he tells me that on their subs, they took the CO2 up to 5,000 parts per million. No problem. They did it all the time. And they thrived on it. My friend Craig Itzo over in the Phoenix area, he uses CO2 to prove that plants grow faster. He grows plants with low CO2 and high CO2, and those with high CO2, the trees grow feet higher than those that don't have it. And since we have been putting a little more CO2 into the atmosphere, crops grow better. There's more food for the world's poor. Our plants grow better.
And the plants put off more oxygen, too.
The Earth is 20% greener, Alex. It's amazing. It is amazing. So what are we going to do about this great need for more CO2 in the Earth? We're going to keep growing using our fossil fuels. To understand, CO2 comes from the exhaust of fossil fuels burning. So our jet aircraft, our cars and trucks, all cause it. Now, they have taxed CO2 already, particularly here in California, but to some extent nationally.
U.S. CO2 is down 10% in the last decade, as you know.
The average American family is now paying more than $1,200 a year more for their food products, for their energy, for everything. And that's a lot of money for a poor family. And under the plans of the Obama administration, that's going to go up to about $4,500 a year for that family of four. Now, the kids don't get their pads. They can't get on the internet. The kids don't get their health care. They can't go to summer camp. They don't get good clothes. They don't, it's a serious matter. It's a very serious matter.
It's an impoverishment, Cloward and Piven sickening plan. They literally are turning the lights off. They're literally turning the oxygen supply of the plants off, CO2, the equivalent. I mean, this is something you'd imagine Lex Luthor to do in a 1950s comic book. And I wonder, where did Maurice Strong cook this up? Because first it was global freezing, then it was going to be warming, and you and others disproved that. So now it's changed, period. And they get on the news when it's hot or it's cold and say it's our fault.
By the way, I covered the Ice Age coming story for ABC. I was their science reporter. I remember when Time Magazine had that picture of New York City under all that ice?
Yes, sir.
I covered that story for ABC, interviewed the scientists behind it, and those same scientists have now changed their mind and are global warming nuts. It's an amazing turn of events.
But isn't the real danger, if we study real sunspots, cyclical systems, that we could be entering a mini cooling period?
Well, a mini one, yes. And within a couple of thousand years, we'll all be gone, but our ancestors will be around, will have to cope with the beginning of the next ice age, because they have come on a regular basis about every 20,000 years through the history of Earth.
And now, you're a top meteorologist. I want you to walk through this. But, folks, understand, there's not just 365 days around the sun. There's not just the 4 seasons. That's the cyclical, yearly cyclical system. But exactly, we know there are larger seasons, larger cycles. Please continue, John Coleman.
Well, one of those larger cycles is caused by the tilt of the Earth on its axis. Our solar system is quite imperfect, and our Earth is quite imperfect. And the Earth actually tilts, about 17 degrees on its axis. And when it tilts more or less, that has a huge impact on the weather and may be the reason behind the beginning of ice ages. But there's also an astrophysicist named Svensson in Norway. I may be getting his name slightly wrong.
No, you got it.
But he's a heck of a man. And he has a theory that it's caused by cosmic rays coming in elsewhere from the universe and activating our atmosphere. A very interesting theory that I've been studying. The truth is, of course, we don't know for sure what causes ice ages, but I'm happy to say that we are so civilized today that when the next ice age comes, I think man will be able to cope with it by putting up reflectors to reflect more sunlight into the Earth and deter the ice age. I mean, our great scientific enterprise.
We'll be able to geoengineer.
It's not the politicians, it's the scientists who make the Earth a great place to live.
Well, what about this hoax? I mean, I just saw a public letter where tens of thousands of scientists just signed saying global warming is a fraud, this is all a fraud. But they get on the news and say all scientists agree that global warming's real, pay Al Gore tax money, or the Earth will die. I mean, they literally say that. It's so ridiculous.
Yeah, that is totally manipulated. That 97% figure is widely used, but there are 31,000 to be exact, scientists so far who have signed the Oregon petition. And that petition states clearly what I state with all my heart and with great study and great scientific knowledge. There is no significant man-made global warming now. There hasn't been any in the past, and there is no reason to fear any in the future. That petition signed by thousands of scientists is an example that there's not 97% of the scientists. But, Alex, it's the power of money. Our government is now giving $4 billion a year to researchers who will support global warming, and $0 to researchers who will counteract.
And I should add that that's their new tactic with gun control. They're funding billions. I had Professor Lott on a few weeks ago to now fund all this fake data on guns. I mean, they really are cooking the books.
Yeah, and this is the same thing going on with global warming. Well, let's think about this. That $4 billion, so far they've had about 10,000 research projects that they have funded. Every time a scientist does a research project, he has a publicist who puts out a press release when he starts, claiming, that so-and-so, the bees are all dying because of global warming or whatever. And then he puts out a couple of press releases while he's working it, and when he's done, he puts out more. Well, the media gobbles up those press releases. So day in, day out, night in, night out.
We're deluged with propaganda. Stay there, John Coleman. I'm going to come back and talk about how we fight this and how you woke up to all this. I mean, you've been fighting this for decades. You've been vindicated as well. Stay with us. I'm Alex Jones. I remember growing up watching John Coleman on Good Morning America. I remember when he started the Weather Channel, and it was one of the top-rated things for so long. Then I got to say, it's declined quite a bit since he left, just from what I've seen in the news. And then you tune into it, and it's all this propaganda about the global warming's going to get you. And, oh, my gosh, we have a dust storm. It's global warming, turning it all into the same scam. It's so sad. And the same mainstream media is telling us this isn't an Islamic radical attack in California, and they're trying to blame conservatives. I mean, these are just really sick people. And the mainstream media is committing suicide. It really is committing suicide. It's like we had Donald Trump on yesterday, and there are over 2,000 articles. If you go to Google News, click News, type in Alex Jones, Donald Trump, and it's just all this made-up stuff, stuff I never said. Donald Trump goes on a show that denies the moon landings. I say the moon landings were real. I talk about the 28 pages, Saudi Arabia, congressional hearings that our government knew. And they go, look, he's a truther, all this other stuff. Well, yeah, I mean, I want the truth about our government covering up Islamic terror to come out, but they misrepresent it. They claim all sorts of other weird stuff. This is how they deceive. Donald Trump called for $5 million if he was to go to CNN debate to be given to Wounded Warrior program. The headline said Donald Trump wants to be paid $5 million, said nothing about him wanting to give the money away. That's how they misrepresent. And the reason I bring this up is, John Coleman, you've been through a lot of demonization for telling the truth about man-made global warming. I've seen them misrepresent what you say, or they go, oil companies fund these people. No oil companies funded me. I mean, it really is frustrating to see how disingenuous they are. But isn't that the reason that mainstream media is in such decline, is that people know that they engage in so many dirty tricks, and then now they only seem to be doubling down and getting more deceptive about the things they say and do.
Instead of watching the mainstream media yesterday, Alex, I watched your program with Donald Trump and Lord Monckton. It was a program. I had no need to turn on my television set, did I?
Wow, I'm flattered, sir. I didn't know you were a viewer. Thank you.
That's why the mainstream media is in decline, because now scientists, technology has made it possible for you to reach thousands, millions of people via the internet and go right around television. And that's why it's in this huge decline. They have a big, big problem, and it's the technology, it's the work of scientists that makes it possible. And it's the work of scientists that is going to solve this so-called global warming problem. It's going to end our age of fossil fuels. Now, fossil fuels have fueled this country for about close to 200 years now. However, in this great 21st century, it will not be long before you begin to hear about graphene, and graphene will solve the problem. In 30 years, I'll be dead, but you'll be an old man, but in 30 years, we won't need fossil fuels anymore. We'll be turning them off because science has brought in the new wave of technology. And these are great things that happen. Now, you asked before the break about how I got into this whole global warming thing. Yes, I'm excited about science and what it can do, but then I had covered that Ice Age thing. So I heard about Al Gore being elected to the U.S. Senate after he wrote a book about climate change. And I said to the man who works for me, a man named Joe DeLeo, who's a certified consulting meteorologist of great reputation, and he worked with me as my scientist helper when I was doing Good Morning America, and then went with me to the Weather Channel. I said to Joe, what's this all about? I'm very skeptical because I saw this whole Ice Age thing. And he said, let's research it. And we began to research. And the more and more we researched in the early ages of computers, before the internet was easy, we finally came to the real facts, that how it all happened and what started Al Gore. And I'm speaking to you today from San Diego, and just a few miles from me is where the modern problem began, at the Scripps Oceanographic Institution. And there, a man named Roger Revelle and a man named Hans Suess had come up with a study that said, yes, global warming was being caused by carbon dioxide. It was a small study, it wasn't a big deal, but it started something back in the smoggy 50s. But we've cleaned up the atmosphere hugely since then with great technology and science. But never mind, that started something. And Roger Revelle then went to Harvard. He left the Scripps Oceanographic Institute in anger, went to Harvard and started the Center for Population Studies. But he talked about this problem with carbon dioxide in his class. And in the front row of his very first class, who was the freshman student? Al Gore. And Al Gore gobbled onto this and made it the meaning of his life. Now, a few years later, Revelle realized that the global warming wasn't happening and tried to take it back. But Al Gore was already in the Senate and beginning to spend tens of millions of dollars on science to support this this awful theory.
To make himself the savior of the world. I mean, if you're writing a script, I could see why they did it. You write a screenplay where you're the hero.
And so here we were. And so I learned that how wrong this was and how honorable it was as what a great scientist that made Ravel, that he could come back and say my theory was wrong. That's the sign of a great scientist, when he can realize his theory is wrong and state so. Because now we're entrapped by all these scientists who are receiving these tens of millions of dollars a year for their institutions to study global warming. All these scientists receiving that money, and if they do what Ravel did and said, wait a minute, it's not really happening, if they were to do that, their money would be cut off.
Sure.
They couldn't pay their mortgages, they couldn't send their kids to college, their wives would leave them, so they just stick with it.
So they're bought and paid for. They become political prostitutes. John Coleman, founder of the Weather Channel, won the National Meteorologist of the Year award during his career. JohnColemanBlog.com. Such a big fan of what you've done over the years. We've got about 4 or 5 minutes left. I want to invite you back up for a full hour very, very soon, sir, when there's not all this horrible shooting news and jihadi wave attack news and the rest of it. But this really is front and center with this global government, open treaty, openly admitting world government. They've really emerged. I want to ask you, as a smart businessman, as a guy that started one of the most successful cable networks out there, one of the first to do it, just as a savvy person looking at the gestalt, all the different pieces, because I really respect your view and want to know it. Well, in your gut, is this thing have so much inertia that it'll still roll over us even though it's a proven fraud? Or is the tide turning against it? In your gut, if we all work hard and you work hard and we expose what's happening and we tell the truth, where does this end up going? Because, I mean, we know it's criminal. We know it's dastardly. We know it's a fraud. We know it's anti-science. We know it's going to be used to restrict other sciences that they call disruptive. We know they're blocking real clean energy and only funding themselves with sickening boondoggles to their friends. They want, at the UN, in Maurice Strong's own words, a new dark age to control the population. That's really the end game of this, like the communists used to keep people poor. So how do we have the new Renaissance defeat these people? And do you think we can defeat them in your gut? If this was a football game and you're looking into the future, we're in the second quarter, in your gut, where do you think we're going to be in the fourth quarter?
I think it will fade away. I don't think we'll win. I don't think they'll win. I think the battle will continue. I was encouraged to hear Lord Monckton say we have turned the tide yesterday, but I wish I could agree with him, but I can't. But Alex, it's not going to be the public debate. It's not going to be politics that settles the fight. It's going to be science. And that's what I was telling you, that science is going to produce a new way to power our civilization that is so sensational that we will turn off our use of CO2, and when we turn off our fossil fuel, the whole thing's over. It's over. We're not producing any more CO2. They don't have a basis to complain. Their whole gripe fest dies. I can hardly wait. But I don't think I'll live that long, but I think it's about 30 years away when we have a totally new power regime for our civilization based on graphene that will just wipe out the whole argument and end the debate.
So you believe we'll transcend by technology and development, as the last Renaissance did, those that are attempting to stagnate society into these new classes systems that the liberals are pushing. Well, I think that's really an exciting worldview, and I tend to agree with you overall, and the battle is up to us. But speak specifically about the innovative technology that you were just mentioning that a lot of the viewers, and even myself, aren't up to speed on. I mean, I know what it is, but I'd like to hear from you, who is obviously an expert.
By the way, go to YouTube and you'll find my report on graphene. That's Graphene. Graphene, invented by two French scientists, won the Nobel Science Prize in 2009, and more than 30 patents have been issued for graphene products at this point. And it is the most powerful, the hardest, best conductor, most amazing substance ever created by man. It can substitute for the steel and the aluminum in our vehicles. And get this, we will be able to build a paint with it. If you paint a car with it, it will produce enough power to power that car forever.
Incredible.
And say, wait a minute, you need a battery. Graphene batteries, there's a patent been issued for graphene batteries. Now, we still can't produce graphene inexpensively in quantity. There's several companies working to do that. When they do, the world really changes. Plastic was the substance of the 20th century. Graphene will be the substance of the 21st century, and it will end the global warming debate, and it will power this civilization into things that we only dream about today.
Well, I agree with you, and there are so many other technologies being developed that many of us don't even know about yet that could leapfrog past this. I mean, it really is amazing, and that's what I've been told by high-level people in the CIA, in the FBI, in foreign governments is there's a fight between elites that want to stagnate development and keep it for themselves and elites that want to give it to the people. But at the end of the day, as you said, the true elite is the scientific mind of innovation, and it's really hard to hold that down, sir. Go ahead.
I don't know that they're the elite because money is so powerful. That's where the money is. And politics is controlling the money.
Yes.
But science has to overcome that, and it's not easy. But science has ruled the world, if you look at it. Civilizations, countries, empires come and go. Even rocks have a lifetime. But science has always taken us to the next level. And so I'm confident that science will win the battle on global warming by making it totally unimportant.
That's why they want us to forget about science in school now and make it all about infighting and racial garbage, when what unifies us is innovation, is discovery, and so much more. Wow, JohnColemanBlog.com. I am so thankful you came on. I've tried to get you on for years, and I must have not been reaching out to the right place, but I'm very honored that you tuned into the show, and we really appreciate you coming on, sir. In the minute or two we have left, any other key points you would like to relay to the viewers and listeners out there?
Well, I think the key point that I will make is science that has made this program possible. It is science that has made many others like it possible. The mainstream media, of which I was a key player for 60 years, used to be. And when I started, we had like 2 TV stations people could watch, 1 newspaper they could read, and there was no internet at all. And I have watched as cable came and brought additional channels and spread out the power, and that helped. But then came the internet, and now we have digital television, which is growing in leaps and bounds. And I think this opens up communications. The Facebook is just a small thing. I'm trying to develop something called My Life, My World, which involves both video and a Facebook-like content, and Twitter, that would just tear the world apart because everybody would become a communicator, and that's the way it ought to be.
Wow. Well, Mr. Coleman, promise me that you will come back in the next few months with us again, sir. It's really been a treat.
My pleasure, Alex. Thank you.
Wow. I tell you, what an innovator. What a broadcaster. What a fighter. He was there at the beginning when they were rolling this fraud out, and he's sitting around with other scientists, other meteorologists going, this doesn't sound right. They just said we were going to be freezing to death if we didn't give them all the power. Let's look into this. And so from the beginning, he's just been going, come on, guys. Al Gore is going to save us. We're going to pay him tax money. The guy that says he invented the Internet was invented back in the 60s by British and U.S. scientists. It wasn't invented by Al Gore. It had nothing to do with it. Then he went, well, I was in the Senate in the late 80s when we gave the Internet some funding. I saw this bumper sticker on somebody's car. I think it was quoting Oliver Wendell Holmes or something, but it said, I like paying taxes because I like civilization. And that's kind of the proto-fraud idea of what Obama said. If you got a business, you didn't build that. Somebody else did that. So, I mean, obviously, some type of government, some type of centralized system, some type of law has helped build civilization. But in latter phases, it becomes very oppressive and destructive historically. And then it destroys civilization. But it is the human mind and human free will and markets that innovates. So I like free market because I like choice and I like civilization. The collectivists say if somebody commits a crime with a gun, you lose your Second Amendment because you're all collectively bad. No. I'm not racist because there's some other white guy that's racist. Or if a black guy's racist, some other black person isn't racist. I judge people by the character of their conduct and their deeds and who they are. I listen to Jimi Hendrix because I like his singing and his guitar, not because he's black. It's the same thing. I judge people by who they are. And that's common sense. Let's get back to it. We're going to go to break. I'm going to come back with a bunch of Donald Trump clips. And then Jakari Jackson's going to be on the ground down at one of the Christmas trees downtown to ask folks, you know, do you think that this could have triggered the jihadi? Should we take the Christmas trees down? And should Christmas be restricted? There's all these calls for that. So Jakari Jackson's coming up. I'll also open the phones up, 800-259-9231. 800-259-9231. Before I go any further, because I've not really been plugging this, but like once an hour, I should be belaboring it. Free shipping has been extended on storable foods, on you name it, with huge discounts of 20% right now on InfoWars Select. With all this craziness, if you don't have storable foods, I think you're nuts, just as a backup. And so many other specials at InfoWarsLife.com or InfoWarsStore.com. InfoWarsStore.com is the big umbrella site. But if you go to InfoWarsLife.com, you'll find some of the, well, true game-changing deals. In fact, I didn't have that specials in front of me. I've done something with it. When I come back, I'll briefly spend a minute or two telling you about some of the specials. One of them ends today. It's 30% off Brain Force. Ends at midnight. The globalists want to get a civil war going at the local government level with the police to then bring in tyranny. We're exposing the false flag.
If I am guilty, I will.
But I have never seen a more sickeningly illustrated example of just oxymoronic treason as the European governments and our government bringing in radical jihadists that continue to attack us, and the media trying to spin the fact that it's because they saw a Christmas tree, or it's not jihad, or trying to blame the right wing or patriots, and then politically correct neighbors not reporting them to police. They're admitting this because they were Muslims and they didn't want to be politically incorrect. And then Obama arming these very groups in the Middle East to commit wholesale carnage against the Libyans, the Syrians, the Egyptians, the Iraqis. I mean, I just have never seen our government be such bad guys before. And it's certainly not been perfect, but man, this is low down. And then Kit Daniels just walked in with this story, and I just gulped. It's up on Infowars.com right now. I've told him, red link this sucker right now. This is such a big deal. Obama arms ISIS-linked militants without background checks. Wow. Just like that plane last week from Mexico with 140 people, and then their passports weren't even looked at. It's like the migrants are being brought in. They're just being dispersed. Is this like sleeper cells or something? Is this worse than I thought? I mean, something's going on here. I've told everybody that I've been dreading December. Everybody else I've talked to, it just feels it's building up to this month. Now we're here. And you got stuff with Russia going on and economic craziness. Look at this article. This needs to be our top story, red linked on Infowars.com. Obama arms ISIS-linked militants without background checks. Gun control advocates want to enact universal background checks for guns, that's registration, in response to San Bernardino shootings. Even though President Obama wasn't performing stringent background checks on ISIS-linked moderate rebels he was arming in Syria. And now he's letting them come in without background checks. We need to add that, Kit. The demand for more gun control is also strange, considering that the shooting occurred in California, a state that already has some of the strongest gun laws in the nation. In California, we have tough gun laws. I don't know how these weapons involved in the shooting got where they were. We'll find out, said Barbara Boxer, said on the Senate floor. And the people, well, we have these gun laws, but look at this. We have 56% reduction in gun violence since 93 in my great state because we have taken action. No, Boxer, gun ownership went up. So criminals are scared, and now all we've got is your weird cross-dressing crazies and your jihadis attacking us. I mean, literally. I mean, always do it in gun-free zones like, you know, this government building. or at Fort Hood, and you said that wasn't terror. People know you're a pack of liars. Paris Climate Summit, hackers leak login details of more than 1,000 officials. We're going to get to all this coming up. It's a big broadcast in the third hour today. Jakari Jackson's going to be at the Capitol, not just looking at the Christmas tree and asking, should it be removed, as some groups are calling for in the state of Texas, but also the state of Texas, the governor, is suing to block the refugees. Obama doesn't care. He just brought them into my alma mater, Anderson High, 300 of them. Just at the school where I graduated from 25 years ago. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Isn't that just precious? So Jakari Jackson from the Capitol in 30 minutes. But first, your calls, some of the Donald Trump clips from yesterday, and more. The third hour of the info war rolls on. We are back. Your phone calls are coming up in the next segment. Look at this story. Paris Climate Summit. Hackers leak login details of more than 1,000 officials. Well, it was 5 years ago at the Copenhagen event, pushing world government again, that we got the Danish text, the documents, and it was all how the third world was to be shut down with crippling taxes that were almost double what the West would pay. So it was all sold as class envy, wealth redistribution, and it is wealth redistribution from the very poor, the blue collar, the middle class, the upper middle class, the nouveau riche, the wealthy, the ultra wealthy that aren't on the inside group. That's why big oil companies like Dutch Royal, Shell, and BP, and of course Goldman Sachs is an oil company as well, they're big in oil, they are the top funders of the global warming fraud. Paris Climate Summit hackers leak login. Oh, I'm sorry, Bill Maher told you that I was funded by the oil companies. He also put up a headline saying that I said cancer was good for you. I never said that. So, see, this is what we deal with, and this is the deception they engage in. Private data, including emails, usernames, and phone numbers of 1,415 delegates posted online by Anonymous in protest against arrest of activists. Now, they've banned free speech in France and Germany. Hackers have leaked it. Anonymous, the hacktivist group, hacked the website of the summit organizers, the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, and posted names, phone numbers, and usernames and email addresses and secret questions and answers onto an anonymous publishing site. Anonymous claimed the attack was an act of protest against the arrested protesters on a climate march. Yeah, they even have the leftist, AstroTurf groups out there calling for world government. They even get arrested. Climate activists organized a peaceful protest, said the demonstration was hijacked by a small group of anarchists, probably paid by the globalists, who clashed with police. All public protests have been banned in the city since a state of emergency was declared. That's called martial law, after the terror attacks nearly 3 weeks ago, which the government helped set up and helped create. Isn't that just special? And then here's another report here out of Wired magazine, and they spin it like, to control the outcome. No, they're running the show. So I'd tell people this 15 years ago. People didn't believe me. Now it's all admitted. This is Wired magazine. Hard to believe it's in Wired magazine. The fossil fuel industry is helping bankroll the Paris climate talks. You might not expect fossil fuel companies to pay for a conference designed to shrink their industry, but in Paris, that's precisely what's happening. See, they have to spin it now. This week and next, roughly 40,000 diplomats, that's parasites, activists, policy experts, and journalists are gathered at the French capital for a round of high-stakes negotiations aimed at slowing climate change. So they just state the fraud. Slowing climate change. What does that mean? Now it's not global warming or global freezing, it's change. They've got to stop winter from coming, or summer. It's so evil. Never. Is it true, Mommy, that the conspiracy theorists said we always had the seasons? Yes, they're evil. We never had seasons before. Everything was like a golf course in the spring. But, Mommy, isn't spring a season? That's a thought crime now. Just be quiet. They're packed into a regional airport that is described by our climate desk partners. They have a climate desk at the New Republic. It has been converted into resembles a cross-between United Nations headquarters building, Disney World's Epcot Center, and a natural history museum. And then it just goes in to mention how Google, 3M, Puma, IKEA are corporate sponsors, but also the big oil companies. And they're there helping. And the spin is, they just get where all this is going, so they've gotten on board. No, they were on board from the start. You know who owned Occidental Petroleum? He got it from Arm & Hammer. I mean, Al Gore is one of the biggest oil company owners in the world. Oil wants to shut down coal, your cheap energy. We're going to go to the ground in Austin, Texas here in a moment. And then at the bottom of the hour, I'm going to go to William, Tim, Kim, Noah, Adam, and others because our crew's ready to go right now, Jakari Jackson and others down at the Capitol. And then we will continue, as I said, with your calls and a bunch of news I haven't gotten to and a bunch of Donald Trump clips I haven't played. We'll get to those as well because that was really an important interview, but not just what he said. It was also how the media responded, misrepresenting what he said and what I stand for. Just like they're misrepresenting this jihad attack out in California in San Bernardino. It really shows the new levels of deception and false reality that these people are going to. Now, I had other questions I meant to get to with Donald Trump yesterday about banking reform, the Federal Reserve. A bunch of those questions came in. I didn't get to it. I was also going to try to get into the fact that you can't just bring people in and then surveil everybody. You've got to stop jihadis coming in. You know, he says use surveillance to stop them. The truth is that surveillance is already in place. And, you know, stuff like, hey, I'm a militarist, but I'm against the Iraq war. You know, some of these statements I don't like. That's why I've said I agree with a lot of what Trump says, not all of it. But here's what I do know. He's not Hillary Clinton. Sworn enemy of free speech, sworn enemy of the Second Amendment, sworn enemy of Christians. He's not persecuting Christians with the IRS. Neither's Ted Cruz, neither's Rand Paul. I'll take any of them or any combination of them over Bernie Sanders. And I don't get into lesser of two evils. But let me tell you, I learned a big lesson not supporting John McCain in 2008. And it wasn't that he was even good or that he was even going to win. It was going to be Obama. That was the heir apparent, the whole establishment behind him. I just hate rhino Republicans so much, and McCain's just as bad as Obama, probably worse. He wouldn't have got it anyways, but I should have been up front saying, if the establishment wants Barack Obama, you know he's going to be bad, and you know that McCain's a ringer. And I did basically say that. I mean, I kind of was more against Obama than McCain, but it's impossible when they run somebody like this. I mean, I saw an article today in the Christian Science Monitor, at the Christian Science Monitor breakfast. You know, again, you talk about a pentagram, an inverted reality. McCain, in fact, I sent it to you, Nico. I don't know if you printed it. I didn't see it here, but I didn't go over all the news today. There's so much. And there is McCain saying, we have an emergency plan in case Trump gets the nomination because we know he'll lose and it'll hurt other Republicans across the board. That's what happens when you run a bad candidate. This is the guy run as a dead fish against Barack Obama. There it is. Without naming names, John McCain frets about top GOP ticket in 2016. And then you read it, and he's talking about himself. Trump is a strong candidate. He's focused. He's unapologetic. He's pushing all the right buttons. If he's the real guy he says he is, he could be the next Ronald Reagan. And not that Reagan was perfect, but at least he didn't try to gut the country. Now, I say get rid of these speakers of the House, get rid of the rhinos, get people elected at the state level. That's the real way to win. But also, if we can get a decent president in or take control of the Congress, I'm all behind that. And look at the whole system against Trump. I mean, I don't completely trust him, especially up front, but more and more, especially in private conversations, and I'm just going to leave it at that. I've never had people this high level sit there and point blank tell me the stuff they've told me. And I just really have trouble believing that the Trump camp would have told me things they told me if they weren't for real. And I'm just going to leave it at that. And I will probably be going up to New York soon. But the point is, or somewhere else on the campaign trail, to have a private meeting with Trump. He invited me up there. But people know this country's being killed right now. They know the country's going down, and it's hitting a crossroads. And we just got to decide which side we're on. And that means Trump has to decide, and everybody else does. I mean, do we really want to join the globalists bankrupting and gutting this country? I don't think Donald Trump wants to do that, and I think he's a big enough egomaniac, and I mean that in a good way. That's what just men are just like that. They just call being dominant, being aggressive, crazy. No, that's normal. That's what built this country. And I think he's a big enough egomaniac that he thinks he can save this country. if he thinks he can and we think he can and we work together, maybe it'll work. And if he becomes a guy on a white horse and acts like a thug, he'll fall so fast it'll make your head spin. That's where I stand. I know Hillary is bad. I know Bernie Sanders is as bad as it gets. Now, joining us from in front of the Tannenbaum, in front of the Christmas tree, down in front of the Texas State House, is Jakari Jackson. And I would also add, he's down there with Joe Jennings running camera. We're talking to some of the crowds. There are lawsuits in Texas to remove that, to remove nativity scenes all over Texas, even from churches that are private. The atheists don't want to look at it. This is happening all over the country. The governors had to basically pass laws and sign executive orders blocking the state removing nativities. The governor also, as Jakari is going to be reporting tonight on the Nightly News from the Capitol, has also filed a lawsuit over the refugees that Jakari went and reported last week on, 300 of them at one high school alone, my alma mater, Anderson. So that's coming up as well. But Jakari Jackson's across from the tree. He's been talking to some of the locals, and they're now asking the question at NBC, did the jihadis attack because they saw a Christmas tree at the health department, Jakari? I mean, this would be comedy if it wasn't so sickening, Jakari.
Jakari Jackson reporting in Austin, Texas, documenting the war on Christmas. Yes, as you say, Alex, they have been coming after the Christmas trees. I saw that clip that you were alluding to on MSNBC. They were asking, what set this guy off? Was it some kind of trigger at a holiday party? Whatever set this guy off, set him off long before he entered that holiday party, Alex, that Christmas party. The guy had body armor. He had homemade explosives. He had his guns, all of his armaments ready to go. He was just looking for the opportune moment to bring those out.
That's right, Jakari. And I know you're going to try to talk to some crowds, but there's not folks really out there right now after the lunch hour in front of the Capitol. But I just can't believe we even have to report on the fact that there are lawsuits trying to remove the Christmas tree behind you. I mean, these people really are about dominating culture.
Yeah, they are, because the former governor of Texas, Rick Perry, he actually had to come down. And that's one of the good things I can actually say about the guy. One of the few good things is he came out, he said, I want the Christmas trees and the nativity scenes, all these things to remain in the state of Texas. And as you're alluding to, Alex, it's been all over, not just here in Texas. There is a story in Virginia that's been in the news recently. The VA in Virginia is now banning Christmas trees in their facilities. They're even saying that you can't sing Christmas carols or anything that's even remotely related to any type of religious ceremony.
And in Germany and in Italy and other places, they're trying to ban kids having Christmas carols, even at private schools. Outdoor Christmas parades are being canceled in case someone gets offended. My God, how did we turn into this Soviet state overnight?
Well, it's always about if somebody is offended, but they have no problem trying to offend Christians or allowing Christians to be offended, taking their rights away, taking away their holidays and festivities, having kids in class stomp on the name of Jesus and do all these other things. But they wouldn't dare do that to a Muslim student.
And again, I agree. I'm not against Muslims themselves.
No, I'm not against Muslims either.
I mean, absolutely. But why do they get special treatment? I just don't get it.
I don't know. It's everybody's a protected group except the Christians or any type of Christian festivity. If it was anything else out here, people would have no problems with it. We've seen in various places the satanic temples and all this stuff going on, these satanic holidays, different things going on. Nobody has an issue with that. Nobody tries to cancel those. But anything related to Christmas, no, they can't stand it.
Whoa, Jakari. Whoa. I am so freaked out right now. I'm going to skip this network break, and you can go across the street and try to talk to some of the folks on the Capitol grounds. Jakari, they just canceled the Christmas tree lighting, and the governor has, in California, canceled it because of the mass shooting, believing it may be offensive and trigger more Muslims. It is now the Christmas tree's fault. This is the Sacramento Bee, Jakari, on screen for TV viewers. Radio listeners, let's put it back up, and I'll give the headline out. Brown cancels Capitol Christmas tree lighting ceremony. Decision follows mass shooting Wednesday in San Bernardino. This is all on purpose, Jakari. This is running up the white flag.
I mean, it's completely ridiculous to blame anything except the individual's actions. Farouk and his new wife, I mean, they decided to make these decisions to go out there and kill people, to throw pipe bombs at the police and all this other. It had nothing to do with Christmas or Jesus or Christmas trees or anything like that.
But they weren't terrorists with pipe bombs, though. Just everything.
That's another ridiculous thing about it, Alex. Even if you don't call it Islamic terror, can you at least call these guys terrorists? They're running around. They had a premeditated attack. They killed, I believe, 14 people, wounded several others. of shooting at police officers, doing all these crazy, heinous things, and nobody wants to call them terrorists. That's exactly what they are.
Well, the governor wanted to change it to holiday tree lighting, and then because of that, he's just canceling it altogether now. I mean, these people aren't crazies, though. They want to learn to ban our speech. They want to set the precedent that if they can take Christmas away, they can take anything away, Jakari. And I don't want to hear the super hardcore Christians, the Pharisees out there, and I'm not blaming them. I get their point saying it's not even Christian. It's a Germanic Tannenbaum, you know, and look, it's not, who cares what it is? We don't mean it's satanic. It's a pretty tree. We're talking about Christ, lights in the sky, you know, the wise men, all of it, the nativity. The point is it's under attack. Like, I don't even like Halloween. Folks know that. It is occultic. It is bad. But if folks want to try to ban it on colleges because they say it's politically incorrect, we have to defend people's rights to celebrate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because as you keep saying, is they keep chipping away against our free speech. They're telling kids on college campuses what type of politically correct costumes that they can wear, which is completely ridiculous. People can dress up like witches and ghouls and cut people's heads off or pretend to do that thing. But if you dress up like a cowboy, they call that racist and offensive. It's completely ridiculous.
And it's designed to be as wide as possible. Jakari, you're out there on the ground. You and McAdoo did this, I think, last year, and most folks said, no, leave Christmas alone. If you go to UT, though, they'll be more whacked out. Maybe go there later and compare and then see if folks want to ban Christmas. But now you've really got the question. California has banned the Christmas tree at the Capitol, and the lighting now is not going ahead. They're not lighting it up because it must be hurtful to people. So say California is restricting the Christmas tree at the Capitol. The decision has just been made. Do you think it should be removed here to not hurt, I guess, radical Muslims' feelings? I don't see a ton of people out there, but I see some. Are there some folks you can probably go talk to, Jakari?
Yeah, there's a few people. It's not very many people out here today, but we'll go and try to talk to the people who are on the location.
There was a lot last time. Okay, go ahead and walk across the street. We'll come back to you in a few minutes, Jakari. Thank you. Folks, I can't even deal with this anymore. I mean, I know it's supposed to be extreme to say ban the word father and mother, boy and girl, and ban Christmas trees. But, I mean, give me a break. This has got to stop at some point. The whacked-out crazies that call themselves liberals are the most twisted, mentally ill people I could ever imagine. And everybody knows I'm not about the left-right paradigm. I'm a libertarian. I have some views you could call liberal, a lot that are called conservative. But under Obama, I've seen Democrats, as part of the plan, the same thing in Europe, this new phase of liberalism is so crazy, all I can call it is Jim Jones cult. I mean, you talk about Jim Jones cult. This is classic cult programming. And there's a total assault on freedom of speech, freedom of association, just normal thinking processes. Our children in these schools are being taught how to be mentally ill basket cases, jumping at phantoms that don't exist while their basic freedoms are being destroyed. Here is a news clip about the tree. And they even spin it like it's no big deal, like he will now not light it, it will now not be lit. They're removing Christmas is what's happening. I used to hear this war on Christmas thing 15 years ago, and I was like, it's not that bad. No, it is. It is a war on Christmas. Here it is.
There was this dispute, and I wonder if there's ever going to be any resolution in terms of what that dispute was about that happened before the suspect stormed out.
Yeah, I think we're going to get the details at some point, but we don't have them yet. You know, understanding, of course, that there's many dead people here, the victims, as well as some of those who were shot and are in critical condition. I think we will eventually get some indication on what that dispute was about. This was a holiday party. Maybe it was called a Christmas party. I mean, there's so many potential triggers here. It's really unclear. But I think the most important thing is to circle back what Joe says. It doesn't add up. This clearly was a planned out event. I mean, you don't rush home, get the guns, have the bombs already made, have the tactical gear on without having some sort of plan. I guess the terrorism. Question is, was there something that caused that plan to happen yesterday, or was that something that was going to happen? And
so now, until we forget about this, they're going to spin it that they don't know if it's terror until we forget. That's just what they do. By the way, they're getting the clip about the Christmas tree being banned. That was the other clip. I misunderstood that. Let's go back to Jakari Jackson, who is in front of the Texas Capitol. down there on a windy, chilly day. Beautiful day out there. Wish I was out there with him. And maybe he can walk over and talk to some of those folks sitting having a picnic. Jakari, is it the last man on earth, or do we have some people down there at the State House?
It was just a few. We plan to get over here and walk and talk a little bit. Maybe we can start moving that way now. See what people have to say about the Christmas tree.
Now, don't say Christmas tree. It may be a trigger. Here we go. Jakari Jackson, you take over.
Excuse us, folks. We're just asking people what they think about the Christmas tree out here. Do you have any thoughts or opinions?
I didn't know there was one.
California just banned it.
Oh, there's one right over there.
Oh, okay. I think it's nice.
Well, because of this very unfortunate shooting that happened the other day in California, they're actually canceling the Christmas tree lighting ceremony. How do you feel about that?
I want Christmas trees to be lit.
You want them to be lit?
Yeah. Yeah, regardless. This had nothing to do with that shooting up there.
That's a very good point, sir. Thank you so much. So, as the gentleman said, it had nothing to do.
All right, now, notice those are older folks now. I guarantee you go to UT, you'll probably get half the people, Jakari. If it was in California, it'd be 9 out of 10, who will say, actually, get rid of the Christmas trees. They caused the murders. And then even if they're not Muslim, they'll probably say something like, Allah Akbar or something, because it's so trendy, Jakari.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's always the people who have lived through things that actually want to fight for the rights that they have. It's the younger people that we often find are willing to throw those rights away, not understanding that they're there for a reason.
Well, that's right. And, some of the old folks push the police state, and they do bad things, too. And a lot of young people are either really awake or they're not awake. But it's true. It is young trendies of every race, color, and creed that are space alien weird when it comes to getting rid of rights. Like, let's put all the gun owners in slave camps. Yeah, let's do it.
Oh, yeah, we've seen them do all kinds of things. Like you said, let's take away the guns. Let's put them in FEMA camps. All the other type of shenanigans we've seen, people calling for, let's ban water, all those things. So it's the kind of default response is just if you don't understand something or you don't like it, just turn around and ban it.
Well, I mean, Jakari, notice those people right there didn't even believe you at first. Because that's a normal response. I can't believe they just canceled the Christmas tree lighting because of the shooting.
Yeah, it's kind of like they're letting these guys win, because they say it's related to a Christmas party, which, as the gentleman said, had nothing to do with Christmas. This was a sick individual who had been planning this for quite some time. He was just looking for the opportune moment to strike. It had really nothing to do with any type of Christmas festivity.
And good guys with guns took him out. We're going to break here in a few minutes. You can shoot your man on the street in your report on the refugee situation. But let me bring this up to you, Jakari. You went out to my alma mater, Anderson, last week, where they have 2,000 students, 300 of them from Syria and Iraq, almost all of them Sunnis, the paper reported, 600 total. Now Obama won't tell the governor or other governors where he's putting them. A lawsuit's been filed. Can you believe it's gotten to this point where Homeland Security is calling our reporters in New York at jihad areas and knows where they're at and knows their numbers, even though those aren't public with NSA systems, but then they won't tell the governor of Texas where the, quote, migrants are coming from or where they're at?
Yeah, it's completely ridiculous. I had a chance to talk to Syrian Girl last night on the nightly news, and she made the very good point that I've been echoing as well, is if we would just leave people alone in their own countries, if we weren't sending jihadis and drones to places like Pakistan and Yemen and Syria and not doing all these horrific things, people would be happily content to stay in their homelands. They're being forced out of there because of policies of the Obama administration. And after Obama uses your tax dollars to go tear up a country, he wants to use more of your tax dollars to bring people here. But it coming full circle, they would stay at home if he hadn't messed up their countries in the first place.
Absolutely. I just got a text message from a great famous musician, and hopefully he'll come on the show because he sends me texts, and I love talking to him. He's been on the show before, and he makes a lot of really great points. He says, you're nailing it on calling this leftist totalitarian power grab as a Jim Jones cult. Dead on. It is a cult with all the earmarks, denial of reality, selfish bootlicking, veneration of false God, and a death wish. Jakari Jackson, great job down there on the ground. I know you're about to shoot a person on the street. You're about to cover the whole situation with the lawsuit over the migrants, over the refugees, and more. And we'll see you back for the Nightly News tonight. Jakari Jackson, thank you.
Thank you.
There goes Jakari from the Texas State House. We're going to come back and go right to your calls. William, Tim, Kim, Noah, Adam, and others. Stay with us. I am really glad to be able to make this correction because I was reading it off the screen from about 15 feet away and didn't scan the whole article. And And then they had another article up that looked just like it. It was all mixed together with a whole bunch of stories on screen about banning Christmas trees and lawsuits taking them down, and Starbucks coffee cups and all the rest of it. Brown's saying he didn't do the lighting out of respect for the victims to not go ahead and have an event, and that they'll have the tree lighting. So that's good. I'm actually glad they're not that insane. The problem is they're taking Christmas trees down all over and restricting them. And we did find other headlines, other articles that were more clear. That story of the Sacramento Bee was not very clear. There's Fox News. Brown cancels Christmas tree lighting ceremony after San Bernardino shooting. I'll tell you what the big scandal is, though, that we know is happening. And that is them trying to blame the right wing for this yesterday, trying to say it's not radical Islamicists that's involved. Well, here's the headlines at Drudge. Terror-eyed as couple slaughters 14 in California. That was known this morning, the New York Post. Muslim killers recently traveled to Saudi Arabia, radicalized terrorist link. Well, they're really Wahhabist killers. And I'm not lionizing the Shiites. It's just almost every terror attack we've seen has been Wahhabist, Saudi Arabian types. And the lady's from Saudi Arabia. He's from Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia. Radicalized terrorist link with IEDs, tactical equipment, throwing pipe bombs at the police, but not a terrorist. Can you imagine if you or I was running around doing this and throwing pipe bombs and blowing stuff up? It'd be terrorist. If you were black or white or Hispanic, it'd be terrorist. But because it's politically correct, they want to bring these folks in to create an even bigger crisis to take our rights. They want to cover it up. We're going to your calls in 60 seconds, but I just want to briefly say, we are offering free shipping across the board. I've decided to extend it out until the 18th, basically 15 days from now. If you order by the 18th, books, videos, nutraceuticals, the InfoWars Power Station. Will you guys bring me one of those in here, please? Thank you. If you do that, it's guaranteed to be delivered before Christmas in the lower 48. Now, if you order in the next week or so, you can get it in Europe, you can get it in Hawaii, wherever. It's just that the 18th is the day where it's going to get to you before Christmas. Free shipping. InfoWarsLife.com. We have a bunch of specials that are running there right now. 30% off Brain Force ends tonight. Try it out for yourself. Regardless, you're funding the tip of the spear in the InfoWar. $9.95 colloidal silver. The leading competitor of the exact same stuff is $24.95. 30% off X2 Nation iodine. 20% off InfoWars Select Storable Food. And free shipping. Deals like this don't come around very often, and the profit we do make helps fund this operation. InfoWarsLife.com. InfoWarsStore.com or 888-253-3139. Now, this is a good problem to have, but we only got 1,000 of these. InfoWars Premium Power Pack Supercharged. We've now sold, I just checked during the break, in 4 days or 3.5 days, half of these. These will sell out by next week at current sales rates. It'll be a few months until I get more. It's the InfoWars Premium Power Pack for $119. The exact same unit, it's just private label by us, sells for over $150. Leading competitors that are even bigger, don't have as much power or as many plugs or flashlights, cost $140-something. And we could sell those. We could sell 10 different units of these. We got the very best with the best performance, best reviews, the latest cutting edge, to then cut it to a price no one else has it for, not even Amazon. The InfoWars Premium Power Pack, supercharged. Free shipping as well. You cannot beat this deal. It's in stock for a limited time. InfoWarsStore.com. The third the size of a briefcase, its own jumper cables internally. This is high-tech. And I have used it personally on my car a month ago when I left the lights off with the beta unit, the original unit we approved that hadn't come in yet, the mass shipment. So InfoWarsStore.com. I want to thank you all for your support. And be sure and support our local affiliates as well if you want this broadcast to continue expanding against the enemy. And you're the reason it's doing that. Your prayers, your support. You notice I'm getting more hardcore, more focused, more reports. Our reporters are all up in their game because the enemy is moving fast. This is a key time in human history, and we're not going to just sit by while this is full tilt boogie and wish later, sucking our thumbs, we'd have been in the game. We're in the game now. We're taking action now. We're fighting now. We're committed now. We're ringing the alarm now. We're taking action now. We're trying to stop the Civil War now. We're trying to stop the crash of our civilization now. We're starting to try to stop the globalist one world government now. Now. We're exposing forced inoculation now. We're exposing the open borders now. We're exposing their plan to get our guns now. We're getting people elected to state houses and federally and internationally now. UKIP's the fastest growing party in England, the UK, and Europe. Totally patriot. Now. We're taking action now. We've got people skydiving into world government events as publicity stunts. Now. We're, with hackers, information that leaks to us, blowing their secret plans wide open and sabotaging globalist operations with military precision and savage glee. Now, we're operating like a pack of gremlins on board their fleet ships, ripping the equipment to pieces and burning them to the ground politically. Now, we're hitting them hard. Now, we're not backing down. We're going full tilt. William in New York, thank you for holding. I really appreciate that. Go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. Good afternoon, Alex. I'm calling on an article that I read yesterday. And, one thing I know that you had the interview with Trump, and I saw it. It was great. I read this article, and it's called, by Yahoo Politics, by the way, Can Donald Trump Be Stopped? Now, one thing that kind of set off a red flag 3/4 down on the article, it states here, from, a quote from CNN, Stephen Collison, saying that Trump would present the Republican Party with a dilemma whether to accept a potential nominee who may fear could stumble in a general election or to try to install an alternative, perhaps in a coup at the party convention in Cleveland that might enrage the GOP base and tear the party apart. Now, I can't believe that they will go to that extent. I mean, would they really show their face and show America and the people that they are really, really willing to commit to just wipe away the political process and put him out, just by, it's like, what is this? A military coup? They're going to take out a president or something? They're going to take him out, even if he's elected in the primaries by the people, and if that's who they want.
No, I've seen articles, and I've seen mainstream TV shows that say, if Trump gets the nomination, they may not just give it to him at the RNC, and they're allowed to do that now. Now, are they doing that to make us love him so we go after him? I mean, the psychology, there is reverse psychology here, but I'm pretty sure that's not what's happening, because the way they've been lying about him and everything else, plus the rhetoric he's saying is so accurate on so many fronts. All I know is this: he's saying the right things, and until he double-crosses us, he's better than Hillary Clinton. I mean, what does your gut tell you about Trump, William?
Well, like you said, it's best to just go with the flow, see what happens, and, I don't know. He doesn't sound too political, to be honest. He sounds like a man on a mission, and he sounds like he's going to be going forth to try as hard as he can and fight the wave that they built in Washington to bring us back to somewhat a stable country.
That's right. He doesn't have to be an angel. All he's got to do is not want to wreck the country. Listen, this country's been so wealthy, so powerful. We have so much innovation. If they just don't shut our power plants off, we can compete with China. I mean, we literally have bowling balls tied to our feet. We're like a boat at the boat dock, chained to the boat dock, and we're like dragging the boat dock through the ocean, through the lake. Cut the chain, cut the rope. We will surge forward. The globalists want a managed economy. They want to dominate us. They want to control us. All we've got to do is sever that, and literally economy will explode. But see, then they can't dole welfare out to us, dole select jobs out to us, dole out select government jobs. They want to be the people controlling the purse strings. God bless you, William. Let's talk to Tim in Wyoming. Tim, you're on the air worldwide. Go ahead.
Hi, Alex. How you doing?
Good, my friend. Go ahead.
Glad to get on the air with you. I wanted to mention a few things. I was actually taking notes while you were talking to other guests or other with Jakari and various other people. But you said to Jakari, you're about to do a person on the street. I just wanted to clue you in that you accidentally said something politically correct.
No, I was being sarcastic when I said that, and then there weren't a lot of folks out there, so I'm going to let him do it for the news tape, just because it's more inducive to getting a bunch of the clips together instead of him wandering around between each group of people. We'd rather do it live if there's a big line of people, but again, it's just him walking 50 yards every time he talks to somebody. We went ahead and scrap that, but he's going to be doing it tonight on the news, taping it, obviously. But, yeah, that's a good point.
Right, I just wanted to make that, kind of throw you a little jive.
No, you're right. It's everywhere. It's absolutely everywhere, and I realized I said it when I said it.
Right. Now, actually, the reason I called in, I wanted to talk to you about this climate change and terrorism supposed mix, supposed combination. Now, the question I have is, who are the climate terrorists? Wouldn't that be the people that are telling us? I mean, I say they're climate terrorists, and David Knight used the term crony climatism, which is pretty good. But I mean, they're climate terrorists because they're telling us the climate is our fault. It's not the sun. It's not anything real. It's all.
Yeah, they're telling us we're the terrorists. They're telling us we're guilty, and they're going to organize things to stop us and organize civilization around demonizing the human condition and human activity. And then they claim the jihadists are attacking because of climate change without a shred of any proof. It's total horse manure. The Western governments brought the jihadis in to overthrow Syria. I mean, they are the authors of what's happening, telling us it's our fault because we caused climate change and caused the terrorists to attack, by extension saying we're terrorists. Yes, it is total buffoon-level false reality fraud. And they put out posthumous postulates, dead postulates on purpose because they cannot be debated because they're so stupid. It's like saying Porky Pig from the moon pee-peed on the earth, and that's why the terrorists attacked. I mean, how do you even debate that? It's just totally stupid, but they have unified media and red carpets and jumbotrons and attack helicopters and jets flying overhead and surveillance blimps with eating caviar saying, you can't have food, it hurts the earth. Literal Marie Antoinette may not have said let them eat cake, but Obama sure did. Hollande sure did. And again, people say, well, this is over the top. It's meant to make us rebel. No, it's not. It's meant to dominate and break our will. See, we're awake and upset. But to the average zombie, they just get more conditioned, more prepared. Do you see what I'm saying?
Right, of course. Now, you use the term zombies. I agree with that. I mean, I like the term mind control zombies because mind control by television, by mainstream media, by newspapers, by magazines, by whatever the FedGov, so to speak, umbrella or the globalist umbrella throws over our face, puts in front of our face so we don't see reality. They throw that at us. I use the term lemmings, basically, because lemmings will flood over a cliff. One lemming turning and going the other direction is unheard of. But I think that the lemmings today, I mean, we're headed towards the cliff, and there's no boat at the bottom for us to land in. I like the boat analogy that you used earlier, chained to the dock and can't go anywhere. But what about the people who are behind us in the boat while we're trying to get away? We're trying to row away and get to the shore of freedom, so to speak. And they're standing behind us with axes chopping through the bottom of the boat. So we think, what about those people? We need to throw them overboard. They're pretending they're with us. They jump in the boat with us, then they say they are. They say, oh, yes, we're coming along, and we're going to bring these hatchets along so we can chop down trees and build new boats when we get to the other shore.
That's what they do, because they're in central control. They see any other wealth we have or any other independence or freedom as something they don't run. It's why power companies have been caught, especially big oil, and the wind companies lobbying to ban fireplaces and lobbying to ban cook stoves and lobbying to ban barbecue pits. They're just making a monopoly on energy where we're totally controlled by them. It's called enslavement. It's called domestication. It's called domination. It's called being made absolutely dependent and kept as a prisoner. Thank you for the call, Tim. Noah in Oregon, you're on the air worldwide. Thank you for calling.
Hi, Alex. This is my first call. I can't directly connect yesterday's shooter to the information I'm going to provide, but when you paint the background with the facts of what's been happening in San Bernardino County for the last 3 years, it's pretty suspicious. The Almez...
Now, wait a minute. I'm going to let you have the floor here, sir, but Are you telling me you believe the Fort Hood shooter, an admitted jihadist who talked to the head of al-Qaeda for 2 years and killed 14 people, that was a terror attack? Because you're a conspiracy theorist if you say that. I'm going to ignore the logic, the facts, the admissions, and I'm going to laugh at you like Rachel Maddow and say you're a racist. Okay, so it doesn't matter how many radical Muslims kill people. I have the moral control, like Karl Rove said. I control history, and I'm saying the moon is made of cheese. I don't care what you say, because I have a term, conspiracy theory, that makes me an intellectual god. Now, sorry, go ahead.
Well, that works, so they might as well stick with it.
Yes.
The Al-Nur Islamic Center in Ontario, California, is one of the biggest mosques in the area. They attempted to expand in Chino in 2013. An appeal was filed claiming that multiple zoning issues were ignored by the local planning commission that had originally granted a temporary operating permit to this mosque. The appeal that was done by the neighborhood was successful, and the permit was denied. The Islamic Center chairman was quoted as saying in the local paper, "I believe that the issue is not the septic tank, but rather Islamophobia. They think Islam is going to come to their neighborhood and it's going to destroy their culture. This neighborhood, for some reason, doesn't like us. Otherwise, why are they filing one lawsuit after another, wasting their money, appeal after appeal?" In 2015, after that case was completed, the local neighborhood came together as a group called SOURCE, Save Our Unique Community Environment, an anagram. They were an unnamed group of citizens that were listed as the plaintiff in a 2015 appeals case, claiming that they did not receive adequate compensation for various case fees, winning $19,170.
Oh, listen, I'm going to come back to you briefly now to put a bow on this. Specifically, what are you saying you think really happened out there with the shooting? I'm sorry, it's not terror and it's not a shooting. What do you think happened out there in the liberal gift? Here's some of the stories up on Infowars.com. Breaking: Saeed Farouk in contact with terrorists. Law enforcement claims he was radicalized. Well, no, he had pipe bombs, was throwing them at the police, and was wearing body armor and tactical gear and killed 14 people with his wife. And he just was in Saudi Arabia. There's nothing going on. Next, you're going to say that Paris was a terror attack. I mean, what these conspiracy theorists won't do. Did you hear Alex Jones? He said the jihad camp was on the moon. That's the kind of stuff they do just all over the news, just making stuff up we didn't say. That's up on Infowars.com. Up on Drudge, recently traveled to Saudi Arabia, radicalized, terrorist link, got his Saudi bride. And then look over here on the right-hand side. Obama administration plans executive action on guns now. White House gun control will deter terrorists. And we got female terrorists now. Even though Obama said women don't attack and widows don't attack. We got all these examples, suicide vests, you name it. Now, Pentagon orders military to open all combat jobs to women. Yeah, you got to screw up the military as fast as you can so the computers can take over. So the robots can take over. So turn your guns in. That'll fix it, even though now it looks like he had police guns somehow. Wonder who on the department gave them to him. Same kind of folks helped smuggle the bomb on board in Egypt, blew up that Ruski airline, huh? You don't have to manufacture a jihad when you bring in a bunch of Saudis, get them all whacked out of their minds, all upset, put them in with a bunch of politically correct people. Man, it is a crazy time to be alive right now. Because let me tell you, the fact that they won't let the governors of the state police track these people, but my reporters yesterday who are going to be popping in. Who's hosting the 4th hour today? Anthony Gucciardi breaks down how fake fascism or fake racism helped fuel the latest mass shooting, the latest from Trump, and he'll take your calls. And we're also, I think Biggs is popping in. And I threw a hissy fit this morning. I came in, and not really a hissy fit, kind of pouted a little bit. I said, listen, it's a big interview. I wanted to play outtakes. I wanted to play clips. I wanted to do some Donald Trump. I'm going to go to the next segment and take more calls, but right now, let's get to some of those Donald Trump clips. Here's one of the most important where he said he doesn't want to make Obama a martyr with only a year left. And you can argue that, but it won't make him a martyr if he's such a criminal if we bring him and his network to justice. So this is one area I disagree with Trump on. You need to go after him because it's what justice demands. and then we could put all this criminality on its heels, because we may not have a year under what they're planning and setting up. Here is Donald Trump on the broadcast yesterday.
Well, you remember this. The best thing that we have going with Obama is he's got a year left, okay? Because, you know, by the time you do the hearings and everything, I don't...
So don't make him a martyr.
In a way, you'll make him a martyr. But I don't even say that. You know, one of the things that I'm the most disappointed in Republicans, because they go to Washington, they're going to do all this stuff. They're going to impeach Obama. They're going to end Obamacare, which has to be ended. It's a disaster. I don't know if you've seen the premiums. They're going up.
It's killing everything.
55%. It's you know, it's going to implode anyway. In 2017, Obamacare blows up. It's over. I mean, it's over, and everybody knows it. And they're doing big stories. Even the ones that were for it are saying, "Uh-oh, this isn't working." Well, the premiums are a disaster. And if you look at anything having to do with Obamacare right now, it's over. But the problem with the Republicans is they'll try and fix it. They'll try instead of.
We've got 5 or 6 other clips that Anthony will play coming up in the 4th hour of Overdrive. Full interview, Infowars.com. But Trump's kind of right in a way. I mean, I'm not saying I totally disagree. He's probably right that Obama is in such political trouble that a lot of stuff he wants to do is going to unravel. The problem is they're still going ahead with stuff even though he's failing. Look at this. GOP set to pass Obamacare repeal for the first time. Dems vow to make it painful, force vote on guns. That's the Washington Times. Some stations don't care the 4th hour. It's Infowars.com/show. Whatever you do, spread the word about our local AM and FM affiliates. Some pretty powerful videos that are up on DrudgeReport.com. I'm just going to clone all these over to Infowars. I'm just saying, Drudge, I love the way it's all laid out here. Black pastors endorse Trump. Who better can help us help ourselves? Reuters 5-day rolling poll. Trump 36, Carson 17, Bush 10, Cruz 10, Rubio 6. But Cruz and Bush are both tied at 10.7. I mean, it ought to be Trump, then Rand Paul, then Cruz. I mean, all 3 of those guys are really good people. And I wish that Trump and Rand Paul weren't in a fight with each other. But I do wish, because I like the Pauls, and I know that Rand Paul is a really good guy and a smart guy and a statesman. I wish he'd get more aggressive. I mean, I really do, because the rhetoric needs to be turned up. You know, he keeps waiting, and I said this before it was in the news, and now they admit it, for Trump to fall. Well, you're just going to be waiting too long. I believe Trump that he's not going to drop out. So he's probably going to be the nominee. I mean, I give it a 90% chance right now. And so you think about that. You want Hillary? You want Bernie Sanders? That's all I'm saying. A Trump presidency will hurt my show. I mean, if I fought like the average weasel out there that thinks, what's better for me? Like these suicide bankers on 9/11 up in the tower still making money while the towers basically falls. Everybody else is run off. They're making tens of millions a minute, but you know, because they're there making money when everybody else is panicking, but they still die. What does it profit a man that gain the whole world and lose his soul? Or your eyes? Would you give up for all the money in the world, lose your eyes? I might do it because I could help poor people and actually build some stuff, but the average person wouldn't do that. I'd do it for the right reasons. But I wouldn't give up my soul. And that's what it comes down to. But it really is crazy. It really is crazy that we're now in this position. But if Hillary got into office for a few years, I'd have the highest ratings, the biggest growth of my show ever. I don't want that. I want to try to fix the country and slow down this tyranny and end it. I'd love to be out of a job or have a show just reporting on basic liberties, defending freedoms, not have it be this crisis all the time. But we're on the deck of a sinking ship here. I want to try to fix the ship. Kim and Adam and James and Izzy, Anthony Gucciardi will get you if you want to hold over. He's coming up. He'll be power-packed, fresh horse in the stable, ready to bring you all the intel and latest breaking news. But finishing up with Noah in Oregon, you got about a minute and a half. You were saying something else might be behind what happened in San Bernardino, California with this big mosque and the community mad about the radical Muslims taking over. What are you getting at here?
Yeah, I'll try to be more concise, but I essentially just wanted to paint the background since they are saying right off the bat that we shouldn't be looking towards Islam as a source for this, that the people of San Bernardino have been in a knockdown, drag-out legal battle with the local mosques over expansion. So I think that's important to know. And on the other side of the coin, it's suspicious, going with the follow the money line, that the citizens who won the case tried to get $200,000 more in legal fees than they were first granted, and that was what the appeal was for. So it's just been a bitter knockdown fight, and I think it's suspicious that nobody wants to look there.
We will, my friend. Thank you. Here's another article. Congress, more than 179,000 criminal illegal immigrants roaming free in the U.S., many of them aggravated felons, rapists, arsonists, attempted murderers. Remember last week, 140-plus illegals with just let off a plane, turned loose in the U.S. Just who knows where they were from. Just they flew in out of Mexico City. Just wow. But Homeland Security through. Oh, Joe Biggs. Here, well, let's call your other camera guy's phone. Yeah, we know where you're at. We're watching you. What are you doing over here at the Jihad Center? You're not planning something, are you? I mean, just give me a break, you people. Well, I'm just doing my job. I'm not against you guys. Yeah, I know. You're a robot who'd probably come take my guns and put me in a FEMA camp if they told you to. I mean, this country is in so much trouble.
Welcome back. It's the fourth hour of the Alex Jones Show. I'm Anthony Gucciardi, and this is going to be a power-packed fourth hour. I'm going to give you some analysis and news on the mass shooting that you have not heard anywhere else. I've got some Trump clips to play. He's got more to say that you probably haven't heard, and much, much more. I'm actually really excited about this hour. First and foremost, you know, it's that time of year again. I remember someone in the mainstream media industry telling me that a mass shooting is like Christmas time because that means big ad revenue and big traffic for websites like CNN. And it might be Christmas time for them, but for me, it's another reminder of how screwed up humanity is in many ways and how we need to fix it. But also, it's a reminder of perhaps something even more powerful, and that is what Paul Joseph Watson highlighted today. And you'll notice that you won't hear this anywhere else. I have been telling you, Alex has been telling you for how long that the phony cult of racism is so dangerous that it will end up with people losing their lives. And I'll tell you how that has come to fruition today. Neighbor didn't report San Bernardino shooter over fears of being called racist. You might have heard about this a little bit earlier, but I really want to give you a unique analysis on this. This is from Paul Joseph Watson on Infowars.com. It is an Infowars exclusive from hours ago. A neighbor of San Bernardino killer Saeed Farouk and his wife refused to report the pair to authorities after witnessing suspicious activity at their apartment over fear she would be labeled racist. They were identified as the culprits, and basically this neighbor was so afraid of the phony cult of racism, that she wouldn't dare report the suspicious activity of her neighbors to the police or the authorities or whatever because she didn't want to be called racist, right? So they create this idea, this power system, this control system of phony racism. And what happens is reality becomes convoluted. And people that you would actually say, hey, why are they getting so many packages and meeting with all these people and talking about weird things, maybe even heard them talk about a plan to kill people. But you can't do anything about it because then you could be called racist. And you know what's worse than being called racist? Nothing. They used to ask people, what's your greatest fear? And public speaking would always be above death. I bet you, if we did some type of a poll, a Gallup poll type deal over the next few years, being labeled as a public racist, I bet that would be above public speaking. You see how this power structure inside the establishment mind Borg has really been controlling people. And it reminds me, Adon Salazar just brought in this article. I put it somewhere. Here it is. Former Connecticut cop accused of writing racist letter to himself. Headline's totally insane. And it's a crazy story, but I'm going to tell you how this proves my point. A former cop who claimed that someone left a racist memo on department letterhead in his mailbox at a Connecticut police department earlier this year has admitted to penning the letter himself. You see, why would he do that? Clive Higgins was charged with filing a false report after he claimed he found a letter with the headline or the heading "White Power" across the top on February 9th. And the letter went on to say, "Officer Clive Higgins doesn't belong here in this police department. These black officers belong in a toilet." Well, gee, you know, if you brought that into the police department, you would say, "That's horrible. I'm sorry that happened to you. That's absolutely terrible." That does sound like real racism, which does exist. And guess what? I want to love everyone. Personally, me, I want to love everyone. I want to embrace everyone's differences. I want to be real. I want to be synchronized with the rest of my species and humanity and get things done and love people and have genuine desire to come together. But let's listen. What happened here? Well, a month before the letter was written, Higgins was acquitted in connection with a 2011 police brutality case in which officers were caught on camera beating a suspect at Beardsley Park and shooting him with a stun gun. 2 other officers were convicted, but a federal judge found Higgins not guilty. He's not getting his gun or his badge back. He didn't even support his fellow officers in court. Where were you, Higgins? You better watch your back. We know where you live. So let's think about this for a second. Here's this guy. His life is ruined, right? His fellow officers and the general public kind of thinks, wow, what a jerk. You know, he does all these things and then he doesn't take his buddies back in court. It's a hard thing to be in, right? And a rock bottom situation. Well, thanks to the establishment phony cult of racism, why don't you just play that card? Play the race card. People are now playing the race card in their individual lives. So what did he do? He forged a letter, a racist letter attacking him, and then filed a police report and said, well, don't blame me, right? Allegedly, according to this article. Don't blame me, and wrote his own letter being racist. In other words, he used the race card to get out of it. So now in daily life, it's just, you just use the race card whenever you want. I mean, if you do something wrong, just be like, well, someone said something racist to me, and I guess you're just vindicated, right? But the main point here, and I dare say it, I dare say this, could the mass shooting, this is the real headline, could the mass shooting in California had been prevented if the phony cult of racism, if the fear of racism, of being called racist, didn't affect this neighbor or wasn't so pervasive in our culture, And I dare to say the question may be answered with a big resounding yes. If the neighbor wasn't so afraid to be called racist because this person had less than white skin, oh my Lord, he was slightly colored, right? If she didn't buy into this phony BS, maybe he actually would have been investigated and there wouldn't have been a mass shooting. Wow. So phony racism once again caused loss of life. I dare say it. I dare say it. I dare say that. And by the way, I'm not racist. Like I said, I love everyone. And I think it's insane, the hijacking of the word racist. It's absolutely 100% positively insane. Anyway, we'll explore some more of that over time, and also about how the mass media has turned this mass shooting, and the governments have turned all these mass shootings and all these attacks into a great way to extend their controls. We've got France to extend state of emergency indefinitely after the alleged ISIS attacks in France, in Paris. They're going to extend their state of emergency, you know, just forever. The Pentagon is wasting millions on staff housing in Afghanistan in the name of fighting terror. And I want to talk about Elon Musk calling for carbon taxes to have the transition time of clean energy. You know, I have a lot of respect for Elon Musk, and we'll talk about why he's calling for carbon taxes shortly here. But I do want to get to these Trump clips that Alex was going to play earlier. They're pretty profound and pretty serious. Just the reality of Trump coming on the Alex Jones Show and talking about this stuff, whether you like him or not, I think a lot of these points are really, really powerful. So I want to start getting into some of these right here and right now. We've got a bunch of different topics, but I think we'll start, because we're going to segue into this anyway, about how the media has completely lied about Trump. I mean, they have literally taken everything he says and chopped up pieces of it and just attacked him over and over again. I mean, why is the establishment so afraid of Donald Trump? Let's listen to media lies about Donald Trump again.
When I first saw it a few days ago, they misrepresented it. They said Trump wants $5 million. Then I read deeper. You said give $5 million to Wounded Warriors before I go make CNN $50 million. That's what you make these shows.
Isn't that terrible? You know, they took that statement. I said, give $5 million. I'm going to want $5 million that we're going to give to the Wounded Warriors or the vets, right? Which is the same thing as far as I'm concerned. We split it up. because they're making a fortune on these debates, which never had anybody. You know, Fox had 24 million people. They used to get like 1 million. And CNN had the biggest ratings in the history of CNN. And I won't take full credit, but I'll take 99.9% credit. So I said, give me $5 million. I want to give it to the wounded warriors. I want to give it to the vets. But a lot of people said Trump wants $5 million. And I said it right in the same sentence, Alex. I didn't say it like...
That's how they deceive.
I said, I want $5 million that will go to the wounded warriors. And they would play it. They even took the tape. You know, the tape is worse than the pen. They can cut it. So they say, give me $5 million, and then they cut it. Nobody knows, what am I doing? I'm asking for money to be on a debate. It's ridiculous. No, I wanted $5 million to go to the wounded warriors in particular. And let's see what happens. I don't know. You know, the one problem, Alex, if I didn't go to the debate, then you know what would happen. They'd say he's chicken. I mean, I think I won every debate.
But it's true. I mean, I saw one channel made like $40 million off you being on there. They should give all of it to the vets.
Well, they should give a lot more than 5, I'll tell you right now. But, you know, the problem is if I say I won't do it, then the people that I'm debating, who, frankly, been very easy, if you want to know the truth.
You can just correct them once you're on stage.
Well, the people I'm debating, they'll say, oh, he's chicken, he's chicken, he's chicken. You know, that's the problem with that. But it's hard when you're leading all the polls and then you don't show up to a debate and then they'll be doing numbers on you. But I would love to see money go to the wounded warriors. I think it would be so.
I agree. What about Crippled America? It's a #1. You got a big rally tonight. Everywhere you go, your crowds just get bigger. I mean, obviously, you're probably going to get the Republican nomination now. Wow, and you're ready for the dirty tricks. 1 minute left, Donald Trump. What do you have to say about your book and what's coming up?
Well, first of all, before the book, because you mentioned one thing, I had never heard that, but I am in this to win it. I am not in this to say, oh, gee, I've done a really good job. A reporter called up, a very powerful reporter, said, how does it feel? How does it feel? I said, it only feels, because they said what we've done has never been done before politically. You know, I've been in the poll for 5 months. Since it came out, I'm #1. I said, it's only good if we win. If I don't win, I've wasted a lot of time. That's the way I viewed it. He said, no, you haven't. You haven't. I said, believe me, if I don't win. Because we can't do anything to make our country great if I don't win. I'll be watching television someplace. It'll be forget it. So I wrote a book called Crippled America. It's doing fantastic business. I don't know if you can see that thing right up there.
We can.
But it's doing great business. I hope your audience goes out and buys it as Christmas gifts and everything else. And I just want to finish by saying your reputation's amazing. I will not let you down. You will be very, very impressed, I hope. And I think we'll be speaking a lot, but you'll be looking at me in a year or 2 years. Let's give me a little bit of a time to run things. But a year into office, you'll be saying, wow, I remember that interview. He said he was going to do it, and he did a great job. You'll be very proud of our country.
Well, I'm impressed. I mean, you're saying you're fully committed. You know, there's no future if we don't take this country back. Donald Trump, I hope you can help uncripple America. Thank you so much, sir. That you will be attacked for coming on, and we know you know that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, there it is, and there's a lot more Trump clips coming up and a lot more news about everything from the mass shooting to how Dow just plunged 300 points. I'll tell you about it when we get right back. It's the 4th hour of the Alex Jones Show. I'm Anthony Gucciardi. This is Overdrive. And before we came back, I played some more Trump clips. We're about to get into another one of those. And then after that, in the long segment, we have a special report from Joe Biggs, who went up to New York to investigate Islam, I forget the exact name right now, but apparently it's a hot pocket for Islamic ISIS, allegedly, activity, and he's going to go check it out and see whether or not it's true. It's a really, really good report, beautifully shot, a lot of beautiful drone footage, so we're going to play that in the long segment. But we've also got coming up how the Dow briefly plunged 300 points, S&P red for the year, prescription drugs, we're going to talk about how they kill more than heroin and cocaine combined, and a lot more. But first, let's talk and let's check out Trump's take on this is the most election possibly in history.
Listen, I get it. I mean, you are a true maverick. I understand. You know, you've made tens of millions of dollars. You've hired tens of thousands of people. I mean, I would imagine that as you've gotten older, correct me if I'm wrong, because I know you talked about wanting to serve America decades ago, really all it comes down to is wanting to have a free country for your children and grandchildren. And that's where I want to come to this point next. Because I know you're smart, sir, and I know that you also, though, you don't dumb your message down, but you keep it at a mid-level so the general public and the establishment as well can get it. But let's get down to brass tacks. I routinely talk to the top generals, special forces, Pentagon currently, out of the Pentagon, CIA, as I know you do, and we'll just leave it at that. There are a lot of people in this government and also retired who don't want to destroy the country. They really know that we've reached the crossroads where the country's done as a third world nation within a few more years. Forget Donald Trump in 4 years. If this happens, we're done. I mean, we're talking about resurrecting the dead here. We could turn it around right now, as you've said properly. You're dead on, sir. You're right. We could turn it around. All the actuaries, all the numbers show it. But it's got to happen the next few years or we're done. And there are globalists that want to have a world government, a system run by select crony capitalists using socialism at the grassroots to make people dependent. And I've talked to not just high-level folks that have been in government that are on your team, but separately high-level people in government currently that say there's an internal war going on and that you're a manifestation of that. I don't want to get anything inside baseball with you, but I already know the inside baseball. I know now from top people that you actually are for real and you understand you're in danger and you understand what you're doing is epic. It's George Washington level, and you understand that office. So I want to tell you right now, can you speak about the war for the soul of this country that's happening right now and really tell people what's happening and commit to people that you won't Ross Perot under death threats and step down when you're in the lead 2 months from the election?
Okay, so let me just tell you, Alex, as you know, I'm leading in every poll nationally, in every poll state. I'm leading in Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, the SEC, Texas. I'm leading in Texas, which I love. I love Texas. You know, we were there. Mark Cuban called up. He said, do you want to use the arena? I used it. We filled it up in 3 or 4 days, 20,000 people. In Mobile, Alabama, we had 35,000 people. We had 20,000 in Oklahoma. I'm so into this. And I'm not into it. You know, I could do other things that I would enjoy doing, to be honest with you.
No, you're doing a dangerous mission. We understand that.
It's not an easy thing. But the key is make America great again. We can make America great again, but if you have to suffer through 4 more or 8 more years of what's gone on in the past and you know, it's just, we're being eaten away. It's eating away at our country. And we can make, in my opinion, we can make America greater than ever before. But we have to get going. It has to happen. We have to get going. And, you know, when you look at the vision, I said Iraq, you agreed with me on Iraq. I said hit the oil. I said a lot of things that turned out to be true, 100% true. And I'm giving credit. I'm given credit by some people. Some people refuse to acknowledge it. You know, they refuse to say.
No, you've been absolutely on target. So what I'm asking is, though, can you speak to the crossroads we're at right now, though? Because you've talked about it. Are we at a crossroads to decide whether this country's done or whether we go to the next level?
Well, I think that if we don't get it right this time, I think this is going to be the most important election our country's ever had. I mean, you'd have to say George Washington is right there. You know, the couple of pretty important elections, right? But this is certainly in the modern era, this is the most important election our country's ever had. If we don't get it right, if we put another one of these people in, like Hillary, I mean, she's so corrupt. She is so corrupt, and she shouldn't even be allowed to run. And frankly, her greatest legacy, she was a horrible Secretary of State. If she runs, I think her greatest legacy will be that she got out of the email scandal. That's what I think. It'll be one of the greatest jobs I've ever seen of getting out of a scandal, because General Petraeus and many others, I mean, their lives have been destroyed for doing 5% of what she did.
That's right.
So she shouldn't be allowed to run. But, you know, the recent Fox poll that just came down 2 days ago has me beating her head-to-head, which is very interesting and very good, and beating her soundly head-to-head. But we have to get it right. Our country can be we can turn it around. But I would agree with you, if we don't get it right this time, I'm not sure if you go another 4 or 8 years with the insanity and the stupidity of these leaders, I'm not sure you're going to be able to turn it around anymore. I think it could be over.
Welcome back. I'm Anthony Gucciardi. This is the 4th hour of the Alex Jones Show. And the neighbor of Saeed Farouk, the San Bernardino shooter, did not say anything about the suspicious activity of Saeed, who is now confirmed to have terrorist links, confirmed to be radicalized in some ways, because they didn't want to be called racist. And the lobbying power now of the phony cult of racism, the cult of phony racism, rather. There is real racism out there for sure, but the cult of phony racism, the fear of being shamed as a racist by the cult, the social justice warrior cult of phony racism is so great that now we can't even act when we see people doing suspicious things and acting weird if we could potentially be called racist by these people. And, you know, I'm a little tired of it, personally. I think it's bull. I think it's annoying. I think it's intellectually draining and intellectually just overall bad. It's pulling our collective consciousness lower and lower by the minute every single time we let it happen. And it also is a little upsetting that in articles on CNN and stuff, I see things like this. So official San Bernardino shooter apparently radicalized, in touch with terror subjects. Now, I hate the idea of left versus right, but you know what I also hate? I hate when it's a white person shooter and they just jump to conclusions and say he's a conservative, crazy person and he wants to kill everyone and he is anti-abortion and wants to murder them all. But then it's like when it's potentially a terrorist connection, even Obama comes out and vouches and says, well, you never know. You know, it's not a big deal. And I get that they want to quell the possible fear, but I mean, look at this. It says, Farouk's apparent radicalization contributed to his role in the mass shooting of 14 people Wednesday during a holiday party for the San Bernardino County Health Department where Farouk worked, sources said. Still, it wasn't necessarily the only driver behind the carnage, as workplace grievances may have also played a role. President Barack Obama hinted as much Thursday when he said the attackers may have had mixed motives. Come on. Anyone that's going to go shoot people in public nonetheless with their wife and murder people at a disabled center, let's not give them any type of any possible, well, it might have been mixed motives. He might have been upset about work. He's going to Saudi Arabia. He's got connections with terrorists, and I'm not some stupid so-called redneck, right? Number one, I'm from the Northeast, and I'm around 99% of the people that are the most liberal people in the world. But I'm not thinking, well, he went to Saudi Arabia, he's a terrorist. No. I'm thinking, hey, the reports say he actually has links with terrorist groups and was radicalized. That's what I'm thinking. Just as I'm thinking, if a white person shot up something, why is he doing that? It's not like it's some debate now that the so-called left media has to act like, well, it's not that he's radicalized, it's that he also was a little bit upset at work. That's why he came in with a suicide vest and started shooting people and made a bomb. He just had a little bit of grievance towards work. His workplace was unfitting. I mean, this is ridiculous. This is totally absurd. Why are we doing this? Why are we pretending? Why are we falling for the cult of phony racism? I am done with the cult of phony racism. I love everyone. I want everyone to succeed. I want everyone to grow on this beautiful planet. And I'm tired of our consciousness being ripped down by the chains of labels, because labels are now power. It's a domination submissive thing where you're submissive and you have to be dominated by labels. Racist, conservative, leftist, whatever. You're dominated by all these labels and you have to weave in and out. Please don't label me this. Oh, my God. And just run around. Well, I don't care. Let the labels come. They're worthless. They mean nothing. They've been hijacked. All these labels have been hijacked. And that's why we're going to play a report right now that Joe Biggs went up to Islamberg, which is a place in New York. I did some reading on it. Basically, on Wikipedia, it says that a bunch of Muslims in New York were being persecuted in some ways, apparently, allegedly. So they went to this area and they created Islamberg in New York. And Biggs, I don't know the full story on it. He's going to inform us all on it. It's a really, really good report, well shot. Went to investigate some claims that there was some apparent terrorist activity up there. And he went to actually go investigate. He didn't even want to give the site out because someone could go ahead and learn he was coming and do something about it. They used hidden cameras, drones, the whole 9 yards. Here is the special report.
Joe Biggs here with Infowars.com. Now, we are on the first leg of our tour investigating the American Caliphate. We're actually in Binghamton, New York, about a 30-minute drive from where Islamberg is. Now, a lot of you people out there might have never heard of this place. Some of you probably have, especially the people who lived around this area. It's definitely a hot topic in conversation with people. You know, based off what we've looked into, you know, we traveled all day yesterday. We did some research about the place to see if any other people have ever gone into the compound and done reporting. Reuters was actually let in and said that it was a place that had very low crime, that it was a place that was very peaceful. And then we read a report that Fox News actually tried to go up there and they were denied access. So we're going to head up there. We're going to go up to the gate. You know, personally, I'm assuming people are going to be on heightened alert since that John Ritzheimer guy made a threat about this Islamberg place and said that he was going to possibly do something. So, you know, I don't know the kind of reaction I'm going to get from these people when I get there, but I don't expect them to be overly joyous or joyful of us coming into their private little area. So we just had the opportunity to go up to Islamberg. It is deep up in the mountains in a very ominous, kind of creepy area. You've got, low clouds, you've got the fog over the land, and it's really like it was described. It's its own private commune atop of this mountain right above this city called Deposit, New York. I approached the gate with some caution because we do know right now that the FBI's put out this warning because of John Reitzheimer, I think that's how you say his name, out of Phoenix, Arizona. He was the man who put together the Draw the Profit rally in Arizona that gained a lot of attention in the media. And apparently, I think on the 26th or 27th of November, just a few days ago, he jumped in the car with his buddy and said he was coming up to Islamberg, where we just happened to be, and made a threat saying that, if they called him American Taliban again, that, he would go in there and basically attack them or whatever. I don't know the context of the whole thing. But, we went into this, with the mindset that these people are going to be on edge. So we approached the compound, and as you come up this road, you can look to the left and you see this big sign that says, welcome to Holy Islamberg. And, you make a left and you go down this road, and they have some distance from the top of that hill. It's like a vantage point down towards the bottom as the hill starts to go back up again, and you can see their little security checkpoint area. So it came down the hill, hopped out, and I went and approached them. One black male, probably I'd say 25, stepped out of a vehicle and walked up to me and asked me, what did I want? Why am I there? And let him know, hey, my name's Joe Biggs. Shook his hand, said I'm here investigating reports of this place being a possible jihadi, terrorist training area, because that, there's two sides of this whole story. You've got one side saying that this is basically this compound where there's sleeper cells and they're waiting to attack. And then you've got another side saying that this really is just a peaceful commune of Muslims who are trying to live kind of basically off the grid, and they do their own thing and kind of keep to themselves. So I told him, hey, I was like, I'm here to find out whether or not the rumors are true, if there is some kind of extremist activity going on, or are you guys simply just here living your day-to-day lives? At that point, a vehicle came and approached me coming down the hill. It was a truck, I believe. Two gentlemen came out and approached me and asked me why I was there. I said that I would like to find out if I could be given access with my camera crew to film what's going on in there, just to kind of help get out the information about what this place really is. People always say that this is like some kind of like crazy jihadi thing, and I really don't believe it. So we wanted to see if we could just kind of get some footage. And
well, usually how it works is what we do is you schedule an appointment, and then we send it to our public department, public relations. So if you could take your car or something like that, and we contact you, we can set up an appointment, interview, and you can.
Yeah, I was going to give him my number and all that. So in that time, the guy said that he has his own media relations guy. He took my name, my number, and said they would contact me. Never heard from him. More than likely, they probably Googled me and decided that that's not a route that they wanted to go. But one of the guys came up to me and brought me a newspaper, and this is a newspaper that they make in-house there called the Islamic Post. And this was just printed not too long ago. But I found it kind of interesting. We went in here and looked at this newspaper, and it says, "Fear, Sharia is coming to America. Too late, it's already here." So there's definitely some interesting stuff in here. They tried to compare the U.S. Constitution to Sharia law, and I just thought that was an interesting thing there. We'll look more into that as well. After we left the compound, we went back down the hill in a Deposit into the little city they have there. It's a really small, rural kind of little neighborhood. And we went and pulled over to the sheriff's department, or the police department, I should say, and spoke with this guy right here. He was the chief of police, Donald Cantwell. And he definitely seemed to have some concerns about the compound. The fact that you know, his job as a police officer, this is in his jurisdiction, the fact that these people handle all of their problems in-house. The fact that there's very little, I would say, information sharing, conversation between the people inside this, you know, compound and with him. He said that they deal with everything internally, domestic, you know, disputes, violence, anything that happens in there.
Anything that happens up there is handled internally. So, yeah. I mean, if there was a domestic, we would never know. None of the law enforcement agencies would know.
And I found that interesting when he said that because, you know, we did some research on the way up here for this trip, and some of the reports said that it had a very low crime rate, and that's their reason behind why it shouldn't be looked at as a training camp or some kind of terror cells, because they have low crime. You have the chief of police right here saying that they deal with everything internally. So how do we really know what's going on in there? I mean, he definitely said that whoever comes in and out of that place, he has no idea. He only knows anything that goes on in there, you know, if they contact him and give him that information. And I brought up the fact that, hey, did you know who started this compound? And he didn't seem to know at all. And from a few of the people I've talked to locally in the area, no one really knew anything about this. But, you know, this area, Islamburg, is one of two places that was founded by Mubarak Ali Jalani. Now, he is the founder of Al-Fuqra, which is a terrorist organization out of Pakistan that has been investigated by the FBI. Now, they have two American fronts. The Jalanis put together, one being the Muslims of America. That's what he started on a trip to New York. And then another is a university, so to say, called the Quranic Institute University, I believe, where these are the fronts for his actions, for what he does in Pakistan. And there's a lot of people out there that speculate or are concerned about these places, because we know that there are terrorist sleeper cells waiting. We know that ISIS is in America. And we know that, you know, Paul Joseph Watson put an article today saying that ISIS in a manifesto clearly states how they were going to exploit this refugee crisis. They can use fake passports. One of the guys in Paris used a fake passport to get in here. So we're not saying that everybody in this compound has bad intentions, but there is the possibility of there being one or two bad apples in there that do have some intent to do something. Because like you said, it's secret, they keep to themselves, and that's one of the things that really resonated and stuck in my head when I was speaking to the chief of police, is the fact that he says he really doesn't know what's going on in there. You know, from the outside looking in, it seems like a peaceful place, but he really doesn't have that opportunity. He doesn't have that full access into what is going on. So that's one of the interesting things. You know, when you look at it that way, the lack of crimes being reported in there to law enforcement, the secrecy of the place. So I mean, I think it's a legitimate thing for people to be worried about places like this. Like I said, you know, the Paris attack, all the stuff going on. I think people they have a reason to be concerned. So we're going to be going to a few more places over the next week. This was just the first stop of many in our trip, basically exposing and investigating the American Caliphate.
You know, that was an interesting report by Joe Biggs. And I'm even conflicted in some ways, really. I'm not conflicted overall. But number one, I want to be someone that says, really, hey, I'm 100% committed to really just building everyone up and being loving in every single way. But you know what? I'm not going to get stopped if my neighbor is getting tons of weird packages and meeting with people, talking about potentially joining with terrorist groups or something, from doing something about it just because I don't want to be called racist, right? And that report by Joe Biggs is really interesting because on one hand, it probably is just a community of Muslims that don't want to live in New York City, that want to live together, right? But potentially it's worth investigating, seeing what's going on. But if you actually ask questions, then you're called racist or you're called a bigot or intolerant or whatever. I'm just so over it. I'm so over the labeling, the domination of labeling, the control of labeling, the attacks that are done by labeling. I mean, you look at Trump, regardless of what you think about him, he's real. He's talking about real issues. And when he's on Twitter, the number one response you'll see from his detractors is one word: racist. What an easy thing to say. It's almost like your intellectual bank is spent and you can't withdraw anything anymore. So you just go racist, 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 racist. It's the easiest attack ever. And we lose so much because we don't realize the details. Like, if you thought that Joe Biggs was racist because he just went and investigated in an Islamic community that potentially has ties with terrorists to see what's really going on, you're losing the details, right? But I hate that fact. I hate that fact. I hate that we can't talk about complex issues sometimes, because I want to talk about these complex issues. I want to talk, for example, to shift gears for a second. We're going to talk about this more when we come back. I mean, I want to talk about France to extend their state of emergency indefinitely. I want to talk about the Pentagon spending millions of dollars in staff housing in Afghanistan. And I want to talk about Elon Musk calling for carbon taxes. But does that mean I hate Elon Musk? No, but it's a very specific, complicated scenario where he's going to benefit if these climate taxes come, because obviously he's in the renewable energy sector with solar and Tesla electric vehicles. So there's complicated stuff. I want to talk about it. I really do. I just don't want the labels of domination to hit me. But I don't care if they do. We'll be right back. This is the fourth hour of The Alex Jones Show. Welcome back. It's The Alex Jones Show in overdrive, fourth hour. I'm Anthony Gucciardi. It's a shame that our loving government spy circuit didn't catch the two terrorists, right, reported terrorists, in San Bernardino with their NSA spy grid, because they know everything we do and everything we say. It's a shame that they didn't actually catch, quote unquote, catch any of these terrorists, just like the TSA doesn't catch terrorists.
I don't mean to interrupt.
Interrupt away, man. Look who it is.
I mean, I've just been in there for the last 15, 20 minutes. Or more than that, going in my office with CNN on, and they're literally saying nothing about Islamic terror. They keep calling it shooting crisis, gun crisis. This is about radical Islamists being brought in the country, who all they do is kill each other in their own countries because they're not radical enough, or this group didn't do this or that. And just to watch the mind control, and then to watch them try to blame patriots or right-wingers or people yesterday with no proof. How many of these mass Islamic attacks are we going to have before they call it that? And then the very damn people behind it are the ones bringing more people in and then grandstanding and blaming our guns. So as soon as the show's over, too, I'm going to shoot a thing for the nightly news tonight on this.
That's what Obama said in CNN. He says,
oh, my gosh.
Well, it may have been mixed motives. I mean, CNN's literally defending it. It wasn't necessarily the only driver, his radicalization. Behind the carnage, as workplace grievances may have also played a role. Yeah, so workplace grievances.
So now it's come out he was a radical. Now it's come out he went to Saudi Arabia. Well, then maybe in France it was a workplace grievance.
I think it might have been a workplace
Death
grievance.
Eagle.
You see, it's not even about racism at this point. It's about common sense. Maybe you wouldn't bring tack gear and kill a bunch of disabled people.
Maybe you would throw pipe bombs at police.
Yeah, exactly. Have a huge SUV loaded with
literally, this is like saying, what was workplace grievances, the terrorist attacks at the German Olympics back in the 70s.
No, World War II was a workplace grievance. Everything is now a workplace grievance, and then Obama says it may have been mixed motives. Like, how does he know?
But I mean, listen,
they say they don't know anything, and he says, oh, it might have been mixed motives.
How many of these Islamic attacks can they, was the French attack workplace violence?
I'd be interested to see next time they peg a white conservative if Obama says, well, that might be mixed grievances too. It could be anything. If this could be mixed grievances, then any previous attack could also be mixed grievances, right?
Well, here's the question. How many of these deals can they cover up? How many terror attacks can they cover up and say that it's workplace grievances?
Apparently all of them, right? Because then they get to do things like extend the state of emergency indefinitely. The French government is looking to, this is from International Business Times, French government is looking to extend the state of emergency for 6 months or even indefinitely, according to
banning free speech across the country for people against what's happening.
Change the Constitution to carry on with the state of emergency way beyond the 3-month limit. The legal framework will be submitted to the ministers on the 23rd of December. Went into effect after the November 13 attacks. So you see how they use this every single time, though, because we're busy debating workplace grievances. They're taking over everything.
Give us global government, or you let the terrorists win.
And as we debate, and as Slate doesn't even cover it, looking at Watson's tweet earlier.
Look, former Connecticut cop accused of writing racist letter to himself. Another liberal.
We covered that earlier, how it's total dominance, because what happened was he got let off. Him and his buddies were apparently beating up someone at a park and shooting him with a stun gun. And then he basically let his other friends say, yeah, it was all their fault.
Well, listen, this is all real sad, but here's the good news. The dinosaur media is slitting the last jugglers in its throat. This is all death throes by these people. They have no credibility. Everyone sees through this crap.
No, it's definitely true. Everyone's tired of it. No one's believing it anymore. It's over. The phony cult of racism, or the cult of phony racism, is completely dying. Alex will be back from 11 to 2 tomorrow. We've got more Trump clips to play tomorrow, more new stuff from Trump, tons of new news, all these facts you didn't get to. Will there be more workplace grievances? We'll have to see. Join Alex tomorrow from 11 to 2. I'm Anthony Gucciardi. Thanks. This is the 4th hour of Overdrive. Thank you for joining us.
About to do a Facebook mentions.